10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome everybody to what is the 8th episode of Stadium Connect North. Wow, I cannot believe already. Yeah, wow. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We've got a jam-packed show as always, a special guest, two special guests here. First, we'll talk about, do a little introduction here. We've got Exception. There's a special co-host with us this week. How you doing, Exception? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, great, great. So what have you been up to this week? Playing any Stadia games or having a clucking good time, maybe?
Yeah, watching a few streams. So that's been good. Catching up on the community. The Chica Police was that was fun. That was entertaining. Yeah, lots of games, lots of kids games. Catching up on Red Dead Redemption. Just bought that one at Black Friday, so
Wow,
it's just
nice.
time stuck, but in such a good way. Yeah.
Nice, nice. NinjaGuy X, how about yourself? What have you been up to this week?
Yeah, very plain and simple, man. Like I've been playing some 9 to 5 all week. That's pretty much what I've been doing. Great game. I really want to get good at it. So yeah, I've been playing a lot of that.
Awesome. Yeah, I myself as well. I've still got to get the weapons, the special Stadia branded weapons in 9 to 5. But for early access title, I'm enjoying it. It's great. It's a breath of fresh air, and sure there are some hitches here and there, but for the most part, I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, maybe me and an Exception can help you out, and maybe we can form a team, and wreck some people.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so as you may know, we have Linux porter Ethan Lee on the show today that we're going to be talking to. He helped bring over Celeste and the Jackbox Party Pack 7 and 8 to Stadia. He's here on the show to talk to us and answer questions from the chat. But before we do that, I've been given the go-ahead to show this video. So let's go ahead and show this video, do a little mini announcement here, and then we'll get straight over to Ethan. So, yeah, that's right. The Stadia Community Awards are coming here. They will be broadcast live New Year's Eve, and the voting is open now for those. I am going to post in the chat here the link for voting, and we'll bring it up on the screen here real quick. Bring it up here real quick. So here is the Stadia Community Game Awards 2021. It will be broadcast live on Clive's YouTube channel New Year's Eve. There's more information coming soon, so stay tuned on Twitter and your usual places to get your Stadia news here. And you can see we've got Game of the Year choices. Pretty much like all are in here. We're broken down multiplayer game, indie game, RPG, simulation racing, family game of the year. Oh boy, like what do we see? Sports, action adventure platform, the pro game of the year, and the best Stadia unique features of a game. So pretty interesting. Like I said, the voting is open now, so get your votes in. The voting closes Christmas Eve, so you have about 2 weeks to get your votes in, and you make your vote count here and vote for your favorite Stadia games of 2021. And we'll put the link here in the chat one more time, and we'll get that added to the description of this video as well. But now we're going to get to the main part of the show here. We're skipping the news right now, skipping the community news, because we are so happy to have Mr. Ethan Lee here, Linux porter. Hey, Ethan, how are you doing?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Awesome. thank you so much for being on the show here today. Let me see. There we go. Get us all arranged accordingly. So, wow. So, Ethan, for those that don't know, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll kind of go from there. And I'm sure the questions will start flowing.
Yeah. So I've been a Linux porter and sort of multi-platform specialist for, this is actually my 10th year. I've been fully independent, full-time since April 2012. So we're getting close to 10 years of just doing nothing but ports. Linux is
Wow.
where I've been pretty much the whole time. It's what I like to use, and it's where I'm happiest. And so with that sort of, I do some other stuff on the side, like I've done a couple Switch games and helped with Xbox versions and things like that. And of course, I've worked on a couple Stadia versions within the last couple years. And so, just been fully, it's like it's just me, like it's not a company or anything. Like you're looking at the entire company right here.
it's just you there. So can you maybe mention some of the games that you've worked on porting on other platforms as well?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, like I worked on Celeste, and I did the Stadia version of the Jackbox, the recent Jackbox games, but I've also worked on V, Fez, Super Hexagon, Streets of Rage 4, Transistor, Bastion, Pyre.
Wow.
Gosh, what else? Actually, this interview comes at a phenomenal time because just this past Tuesday I released. I'm not making this up. My 69th Linux game released this past Tuesday.
Nice.
Wow, that is awesome. Yeah. Geez. So I still can't get over. So it's just you yourself. That's it. It's you. You're the main person there. Wow.
Yeah. So it expands. Like I actually Steel Assault I released a couple months ago, and I had to check my package list because each game will have a different package, like a Linux Steam, Linux Humble, and so on. So I actually hit 175 packages a couple months ago that I'm the full maintainer of all of them.
That's crazy.
Wow. That is ridiculous. That is awesome. So I guess, wow, I have so many questions running through my head here. I guess I'll go with one of the questions here. So your first game that you brought over to Stadia was Celeste, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can you tell us how are you approached, what's the process of somebody contacting, who contacted you? And I'm just interested in how it all came about of they just a random call up, hey Ethan, would you like to bring Celeste over to Stadia? Or fill us in on that. What's the process of how you get contacted to bring a game over?
So I think for Celeste, for all three of the games actually, I think it was just I had worked with Maddie and Noah before. I worked on Towerfall and then Celeste later, and I think might have been a couple years. I don't even remember what year. It's at some point I was just contacted by one of them saying, hey, we're actually interested. I think they were approached to bring their game to Stadia, and then I think because of the Linux roots, they were like, well, let's ask. They probably just figured, maybe he can figure it out. And so, that was definitely it for me. I think it's sort of a half and half of sometimes people who I've worked with before who are just he's ported stuff, so he'll probably be able to do it. And then I think in the case of Jackbox, they actually do have Linux versions, and one of their programmers is they do Linux versions and they know what they're doing. But I think because Stadia is sort of in some ways similar, but in some ways not. I think they wanted to bring someone else in, and so to work on Jackbox stuff, it was great. A lot of people know Jackbox, so to get a cold email was kind of exciting. So
that's awesome.
So wow. I think but at the core of it, I don't really have a direct relationship with Google at it, even now at this point. But it really was. Google will probably talk to the developer and they'll probably work something out, and then they'll bring me in to actually do it once they've established how to do it.
Okay. So basically your reputation, you're known amongst developers, and if they're if they're looking for someone to do like Linux ports, or in this instance, these 3 Stadia games, they approached you and said, "Hey, would you be interested in helping us bring these games over to Stadia?"
Yeah, and that's how a lot of like, particularly console versions, that's how it usually goes. Like sometimes I'll
Wow.
go, like there's like a game that on Steam that's like Windows only, and I'll kind of bother them and let them see if they'll let me do it. But for consoles and Stadia in particular, it's usually the other way.
Wow. Okay, so your first game was Celeste that you brought over. Can you maybe talk to us, like maybe like some of the differences and similarities, like maybe what the process is? Like, where do you start when first, like again, example for Celeste, like where do you start when, okay, I need to bring this over from Linux to Stadia? Like we know that Stadia uses Linux, but obviously you said it's a little bit different. So we'd be interested to hear like some of those differences in the processes and also the similarities as well.
Yeah. So funny thing is, Celeste actually was not my first Stadia title. Technically,
Oh, it wasn't. Okay.
there was another company that I knew. I haven't worked with them terribly often, but they knew me for stuff that I do, and so they approached me about Stadia versions. And unfortunately, the titles are probably never going to ship because I think this was really early on, and so they were Stadia sort of getting they're still sort of figuring out their identity, and these games weren't the best fit for. Interestingly, like non-technical reasons, there was other stuff involved, and so basically.
Oh.
The way that we ended up approaching it was they basically, because they were using SDL, which is what I use for all my games. It's basically the layer with which I can like make a window, like get input and things like that without having to write all of the OS specific stuff because it's already been written. And so they basically said, okay, I basically said, I want to do, okay, we'll start with the Linux version and then I'll bring SDL to Stadia because we'll see how much overlap there is with that. And then like the graphics system, I think it was OpenGL based. So I was like, well, I don't know, this Vulkan's like really painful. So, I wonder if it'd be, because I knew Angle had Vulkan in development. So I was interested in seeing how hard it would be to kind of make Angle Vulkan work there. And so the process sort of for Celeste and those other games was actually kind of the same in the sense that it was focused on SDL and then the renderer and then any middlewares in between. And kind of to my surprise, like they definitely have their own, like for example, they're not using like the X window system or anything like that. They have like their own custom way of getting video out. And they use Pulse Audio, which is a standard Linux audio stack. But like for the most part, not only was the API for it's called GGP. Like you can look at like the Vulkan specification. It's called GGP. The GGP SDK was actually really nice because usually for like console SDKs, like because you're having to write all this custom code and it's going to get thrown away the next gen or whatever. But like you can tell that there was a lot of like thought put into not just actually using it, but also like they have a model that you can clearly see for like long-term maintainability. And it's funny because I get the impression that maybe they knew about SDL even though they didn't have a Stadia version of SDL because it felt very familiar. So like I think it took maybe a month from start to finish to get like from scratch, never seen the GGP SDK to like I had games running on the system. Like
wow,
not bad at all. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
And for the thing that was a little more interesting was actually the OpenGL side because of course they're leaning very heavily in the AAA and OpenGL don't mix. But for independent studios like OpenGL, like we really depend on it. So I kind of looked into the idea of like making the Vulkan renderer of Angle work on Stadia, and so that actually became this really interesting conversation where I was working with Google, just not that Google, because I wasn't working with the Stadia guys at all. I was actually working with like the Chromium and Angle people, like this completely different division.
Okay, right, yeah.
And so like it became this interesting process of like trying to make it so that we could make Angle for Stadia thing that was totally tangential and just happened to be this other thing. So now if you actually go to the Angle repository, you'll see like it has like Stadia certified because I'm the one who did it. Like,
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
and so that's what Celeste uses for Stadia. Is actually I think it, unless there's another game that I'm just not aware of, it's the only OpenGL game for Stadia.
What? Okay, that's
No.
cool.
Wow.
But I mean, but it's been like it's gone through conformance testing, and it's gone through Stadia cert at least once.
Yep.
So it was nice to be able to not only bring a game to Stadia, but also work on all this infrastructure to like have SDL for Stadia and OpenGL for Stadia, which it's a shame that I don't know of more independent developers that have been able to use it, because I do think it'd be something that I think would be valuable. But maybe I'm just out of the loop. For all I know, it's been.
Oh.
But,
Maybe they're not aware of it, right? You never know. Maybe they don't advertise it as much or not.
Yeah. But
Wow.
but that was most of the process. Like for the game itself, aside from like getting SDL running, once SDL was running, once we had a GL driver, it was basically just running the Linux version with like one little function call that was needed for like frame presets or whatever. But once SDL was there, the difference between Linux and Stadia is not like the documentation we have on the FNA website, which is an excellent re-implementation I worked on. The documentation for Stadia is like this long. Like half a page. It's like, look, if you have a working Linux version, you basically have a working Stadia version minus the red tape. So
Wow.
That's cool.
Wow.
I've been told that, and I like to hear that it's the same, like that you're confirming that it is what it is, porting from Linux to Stadia. We have a question here in the chat. Actually, Patrick here is asking, do you work on fixing the bugs of the ports that you create, or does the dev company that hire you do that, or did you even have any bug to fix when you?
I think Stadia. I don't think there were any bugs because it was basically because like that one. Stadia fits into what I call single assembly portability, which is FNA is basically falls within .NET, which is basically So try and angle it in something that might be broader, like Java, for example. Like you compile Java, you're not actually compiling native executable code. You're compiling something that like a runtime, like the Java runtime, actually.
Right.
.NET falls into that, where we have basically like Mono, which is something that acts like .NET, but it works really well as an embedded system. And so one of the things I was really insistent on in FNA was something called single assembly portability, which is when you build your FNA version of your game, that one build is your Windows version, your Mac OS version, your Linux version, your FreeBSD version, your Stadia version.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that's how it works. Okay.
Because like the whole point of managed code is that you can do that. And it's shocking that people don't do that more. And so Stadia, because they let us use Mono and they let us use like the JIT, for example, because it's not like a console where you have to be very tied in because it's all remote anyway. We can just use I can actually do the desktop build of Celeste with like the Stadia defines, and then swap out the SDL version, and that's the port. So like it's not like there's a specialized port bug thing that I have to worry about for those types of games, because the Stadia platform is flexible enough with the kind of stuff that we build that single assembly portability is something you can do. So that's not really an issue. It's probably an issue for other studios where like they're making a Vulkan renderer just for the Stadia release, which is a shame. To have like a desktop Linux version of it, but but like I guess a more broad answer is like if I work on a port and there is a bug, I will be the one that goes and fixes it. Like so it's very like if it's like game specific, like it's like a game logic issue, like usually I'll defer that to the studio because they'll know that code better than me. Like I don't need to be messing with the jump logic in Celeste or anything like that. But,
doing cheat codes and stuff.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So basically, once you have the tools, getting the game up and running is simple. Is basically what you're saying, right? Like an existing game that's already there. Like for example, Celeste. Once you had those tools created and up and running, porting it or like bringing it over and getting it running on the Stadia platform was fairly simple.
Right, and I think there's varying degrees of it's kind of the first 90%, and then there's of course the other 90% that like I like to call it, where there's the final polish. But like Jackbox is kind of a similar story where I think because that one doesn't use it like there's a Vulkan renderer for that one, but you'll because they use like a Flash engine called Scaleform. And they actually, like, if you look at the Scaleform documentation, they list a Vulkan renderer. But it actually did take a fair bit of work because I think Vulkan is, as developers will know, Vulkan can be very picky and very hardware specific. And so we have to focus more on, like, for example, like maybe there was something that worked on NVIDIA but didn't for AMD. And of course, like Stadia, for example, is AMD. And so, there was a lot of work getting the Vulkan stuff. But that was something I did basically for the desktop Linux version, which is like they historically used OpenGL, and I think they were interested in having Vulkan for long-term viability of the Linux build. And so it was like getting from Direct X11 and or not Direct X11, but the X11 Windows system, and OpenGL to like Vulkan and SPL, just the way that I wanted to do it, and they were really flexible in letting me do that. And then from there, but once that 90% setup was done, then it was just a matter of getting the deployment to be smooth, and that's sort of where it's at now. Is like we focused on one party pack, and then like I think before we had even shipped to the first one, we already were looking at another one and just kind of looking into making sure that like if they want to do more in the future, for example, like making sure that all the work that I did in making the framework a smooth deployment process for like updating, like if they wanted to bring an old one or if they're going to do Party Pack 9 or whatever's next for them. Like, I don't know what they're doing, but like I wanted to make it so that, it doesn't matter if I know or not. They can just do it.
I mean, now that you know how from Linux to Stadia is pretty easy to port, maybe you could suggest people that, hey, I can also port it to Stadia at the same time, like just suggest them to the developers.
That was sort of the interesting thing is that I, as a sort of a background to this actually, which was, so being a Linux guy, I've been sort of really invested on like the desktop Linux and particularly the Steam platform. There was always sort of a hint, like for many, many years, that they were working on a hardware platform of their own, and they have Steam OS and things, and so it was a strange experience. Like a lot of us were kind of waiting for that big day because that meant once they had that hardware platform that was Linux based, like we were going to get all the calls. But then it actually happened, and like in big giant letters, like on their developer documentation, on the website, in the videos, they say in plain, unambiguous English, Linux ports are not necessary.
No.
God. Literally, what should have been like the best day of my life, I literally went from like thinking I was going to have a smooth future was, oh God, I need to know how I'm going to pay for my house next year. And so, it's like literally ever since then, I've been like fighting this urge to have like this horrible disillusionment about what I've been doing, and obviously like the attitude that made that promotion has been a problem. The customer attitude has been a problem. But then, like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I remember, like, I think we got Jackbox 8 out.
Yep.
And I remember the audience response to it, and it was a niche audience that is vocal about their platform, and they're very supportive, which is what Linux desktop used to be like.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like it was interesting to see it because in my head I wasn't thinking about it at all, and when I saw that response to it, it made me wonder if there's this like other platform that I hadn't been thinking about that had that same kind of hustle that my old audience used to have. And so I think I just threw out as a random thing, like, so Stadia, the Stadia platform in the audience, I think, has the opposite problem that desktop Linux has right now, which is like right now, desktop Linux, I'm absolutely terrified that nobody cares that it's being for lack, this is the wrong word to use, but it's the only one I can do based on vocabulary. But it's kind of being gentrified in a way where like this massive like conglomerate of like billion-dollar companies is sort of stripping it of its identity, which is the last thing it needs. Because the whole reason you use Linux is for its own identity.
Right. Yeah.
And Stadia, I think, has the opposite problem, where I think they are its own thing, but they aren't. I think there is some benefit to kind of trying to find ways to integrate it to other systems, like maybe not as tightly coupled as, for example, like Xbox and xCloud. But the thing that I kind of threw out there was like, Stadia gamers are willing to hustle, which is the thing that like used to make our platform work. So I wonder if it's like, hey, what if Stadia gamers could approach it in a way where it's like, hey, maybe desktop Linux is interesting because of the Steam Deck or because of the platform itself. And of course, Stadia is so close to that maybe it's like they could kind of take a two-pronged approach to it of, we'd like to have a Stadia version, but it'd be nice to have that Linux version also have a local desktop build, for example. But I think if you approach it as having multiple SKUs for the same relative amount of work, I think that would be an interesting thing. Like a lot of times, like when I do a console version, I kind of sneak into the contract. Okay, we can do this console version, but I want to do a native Linux version too.
Wow, yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's
cool.
awesome.
And so I feel like Stadia could be the same way, and I think customers could probably capitalize on that. Certainly, with like if Valve's plan to make Linux games on deck kind of the primary approach, I think that it's something that I kind of threw out there, just like I tweeted it. And I think the response was it wasn't as big as, obviously the game release is going to have way more attention, but like, it did seem like there was kind of an interest in the idea that, having Linux versions be treated as, your desktop build and your cloud build, and kind of have local and cloud kind of coexist. This is where I think Stadia belongs. Like, I think it's hard for me to kind of think of Stadia as like the sole way to go going forward, because I think there's a lot of implications. Certainly, you don't want the Spotify of gaming to happen basically ever, because it was horrible for like anyone that wasn't already extremely rich. Like, we need small independent games to be viable for people to make the game and share it with people. And, having a strong independent local platform is important for that, I think. And so I mean, it's a long-winded way of putting all that.
Yeah. No, that's okay. So here's another question here. Clive is asking, is it easier now with the new tools they've introduced for developers? Have you had to use the new tools? Like, they've been talking about that? Like, they're trying to streamline the process. Back in July, I think it was at the Game Developers Conference, Google Game Developers Conference. Google talked about like making things, the certification process easier, tools to use on, like, to bring those games to Stadia easier. Have you had any experience with any of those, or?
Most of my interaction with the process is because we have SQL, and basically it's just making sure, like, if they have any ABI breakages, we have to kind of keep up with that. But I think what most people are referring to when they talk about the tools is stuff like the DirectX layer, and things like that. I haven't really worked with it, because for me as a specialist, my whole point is I'm trying to, make like either work on a Vulkan version directly or try to bring like OpenGL via Angle or something like that. So in a way, I guess I've worked on one of those tools, but not the one that they were focused on. Because I think what they're really referring to, unless I'm wrong about this, my guess is the layer is just DXVK native, which is something that Joshua Ashton has kind of put together for. I think his original motivation was to bring some of the old Source Engine games to Vulkan, like Portal 2 and Left 4 Dead 2. Like, they have a Vulkan renderer that's DXVK native. It's this big. I assume it's DXVK native, because actually making the conformant like DirectX driver, and actually writing it and making it work with Vulkan and making it work in like against a broad catalog and possibly broad hardware too, because if they continue to grow, they're going to have different hardware configurations as they upgrade their systems or whatever. Making a DirectX driver is a lot of work, and so. and that's probably why they're focused on that, because of course DXVK within like the desktop environment or the ecosystem rather has certainly provided a lot of benefit in the sense that you don't have to go all the way with Vulkan, but you're not stuck with like a high-level system like OpenGL, which you can make like our OpenGL render in FNA is like really great. Like it's actually still competitive with Vulkan despite us having worked on Vulkan for like at least a year now.
Wow.
But like, I mean, OpenGL first off had an 8-year head start. But
that'll help, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's nice to be able to kind of provide different avenues for native builds. I just
Right.
worry that it's going to go too far in the other direction where they're going to spend all this time trying to make a whole like Windows reimplementation, which I think is kind of counterproductive because the fact that like the GGP SDK is very simple and very straightforward, and that's the nice thing about it. They're trying to add all these other layers, especially when performance is a concern, and when you have to be very particular about performance on a cloud platform.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the simplicity was what made it so appealing, at least for me. Certainly as a one-man studio, so just
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. So I mean, I haven't worked with a lot of the technical stuff of the stuff they're introducing. I've certainly like seen how like the cert process has changed, and cert for Stadia has always been pretty good. Like I've definitely dealt with some awful like cert processes, in the last 10 years, but it'll happen.
Yeah. Okay. So you probably can't answer this, but I know that you mentioned earlier you worked on a couple of games to bring over to Stadia, but it didn't come to fruition. Are you allowed to mention them or hint to us? Or I mean, it's totally fine if you can't. I thought I would ask. All you can say is no. So I would have killed myself if I didn't ask you there.
Well, actually, it might be worth kind of hinting at it, because I think it is something that I think Stadia players might be willing to provide insight on it from the customer side. Is that the issue that we had is that input methods were an issue.
Okay.
I think I was kind of surprised because, for example, like, well, if you think about like the PC, for example, there are a lot of like keyboard and mouse only games. Like they
Right.
the mouse. You can come up with like things like this game controller to kind of weasel your way out of it, but at the end of the day, keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
But it's one of I can understand why a platform might be insistent on, for example, having controller support or touch support, but I would be interested in knowing to what degree it's important to have all of them always be supported. Because, I mean, obviously for accessibility, there's a lot of value in having lots of different input methods, but I do wonder to what degree you get a diminishing return on that and how much Stadia players care about that. Because I know like the main thing is supposed to be the controller, but I do wonder to what degree people would be open to the idea of having a game be like, it's a desktop only, but it's still through like Chrome.
Okay.
So, like, that was sort of the initial issue. So, I mean, it would be interesting to kind of see what customers think of that.
Yeah, there's keyboard only games I think in the store. There's certainly controller only games.
So, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so the issue with the particular games that we're referring to was the input methods.
Yeah, I think just like what was required, what wasn't. I actually don't even. The rules probably have changed in some ways. But, this was years ago. But
it's valid. I don't think there's any Stadia game that doesn't support the controller or doesn't support the keyboard. Right? I think they all do.
Yeah, in some form or way. One of my questions would be is like, obviously, I mean, at least to me, I'm thinking, okay, the controller support has got to be number one for the game. But is there a mandatory, like, do you also have to have keyboard and mouse? That would be something interesting to find out too.
Yeah.
Is that part of it?
I would be interested to know, because I think by the time that I started working on Celeste, like the game, both Celeste and Jackbox, of course, they all support all kinds of crazy input.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I don't know what the rules are now, but I would be, in retrospect and thinking about it, I would be interested to know, because again, that was a case of the game worked, but I think it just was within the specific guidelines and the vision that they had. I think just there might have just been a disagreement there. But that's pretty much that's this is kind of a summary of it. Maybe things have changed. Maybe there's something I've missed. Actually, because I mean, I was sort of secondary. Like again, I've never interacted directly with the Stadia guys. It's always been people on the side. So
my guess would be that they haven't changed because there's a game that released this week on December 8th, and it was 9 to 5. And on the same date that they released the game, they patched a controller support at the same time. So it might still be a requirement, is what I'm assuming, just because of that, right? So
okay, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It'd be something that, you know, especially it's for long term, like trying to expand the catalog. It'd be interesting to know like how big of a problem that even is too, because you know, sometimes like I'm sure, like again, the Steam controller kind of showed that, you know, you can kind of come up with creative ways to get around it. But, so it's like, is it worth trying to pursue that route, or you know, is there going to have to be like an exception to the guidelines someday? I don't know if there is still one.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Wow. So, and so initially bringing over, so you did Jackbox Party Pack out of the two games for the Jackbox games. You did 8 first, and then 7 as well. So once you had that framework for 8, was that like super easy? Then was 7 just like a breeze compared to 8 to bring over? Like, you know, like fairly easy. Obviously, there's still work in that, not discounting, you know, anything, but compared to 8, was 7 a lot easier for you to port and bring over?
So that's the funny thing. I started with 7, and
okay.
So like we worked on 7, and then I think as we were going through the cert process for that, it was like, well, because really the whole point is that I wanted, like my vision was I wanted to do a good job of making sure the framework was good, because that's the I wanted, like, because it was supposed to be side by side Stadia and desktop Linux, like kind of making the desktop version more robust and, you know, modernizing it a little bit. And so, of course, a good way to test that is to try another game. And so they were, you know, obviously they're working on 8. So it just turned out that it worked well enough that 8 just came out first, because of course it's the new one. So it's just
nice. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're like, wait a second, like I did 7 first, but 8's coming out. But yeah, it makes sense, right? It's the newer of the two. They wanted to get that out. So
it's kind of a funny thing. It's like 7 was sort of the test case for making sure that like Vulkan and SQL work, and then it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess what might be kind of a little bit interesting, not Stadia related, is like how did you get into doing what you're doing now? You know, your Linux porting. Like growing up, were you always interested in computers? You know, like be interested to find out about that as well.
Well, so like any Linux porter would do, I was starting off by getting a music degree in college.
Nice one.
Yeah.
So I was a music producer, and you know, like because I was in like middle school, like I kind of got forced into band class, and then I like went to this like music camp thing. You know, this is kind of stuff that parents make their kids go on, and
right,
like, and like I kind of discovered like music production and like sound design and things like that, and the fact that I was also like modding games, like I was modding Halo, and so. And I was trying to approach it from like, I'll do like art mods, and I was a terrible visual artist, like absolutely terrible. And like I wasn't really a programmer either. I was so ignorant of the whole thing. Like my idea of coding was like going into like the .halo hex editor and like editing the .mat files. Like that's what I thought.
Right. Yeah.
But like I think over summer 2012, no, it was actually spring. Like no, it was earlier than that. Like it's been so long. I think it was around the time that like Minecraft was like winning every award ever, right?
Okay, right, yeah.
And like the idea that it was winning this award and it was like Java based, and I had taken like one course on Java in like high school. It was like, you know, printf the class, you know, one of those classes. It was enough to know what code looked like. I wasn't thinking it was a hex editor anymore. And I was like, well, I wonder if I, you know, because the idea of like getting into the games industry as a music guy is really hard, because everybody, you know, it's a meme how often you get, you know, emails from, you know, musicians wanting to do soundtracks or sound design. So part of me wondered if it was important to kind of learn to like kind of make the whole game and kind of figure out how to just kind of figure out making an independent studio with a friend of mine who's now making these crazy Inferno Plus, who many of you know as the guy who made Cursed Halo, and I think he just released like Cursed Souls, and he's doing all kinds of crazy stuff himself. But like this was 10 years ago, and we were still kind of figuring out like what we wanted to do. And suddenly, like a few months after I started doing that, a company called Eden Industries, who had just released a game called Waveform, was looking for an audio programmer because it was like a game where you just kind of control a little wave pattern and you try to collect dots on a map and avoid obstacles. And I think they wanted to make like a music reader where you would give it a track and then it would kind of generate levels based on that. And they said they wanted like an audio programmer to do that. And so I was kind of excited to give that a try. Problem is they were a Windows game, and by that point I was pretty firmly on Linux. And so they offered me the audio programming job, but secretly I was like, well, I'll do that. But of course, as I do that, I'm going to like secretly make like a Linux version for myself and nobody else so that I can actually make the audio pod.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then, but Ryan, who ran the studio, kind of caught wind of that and was like, well, okay, you know, we're going to make a Linux or a Mac version. Like, I think Steam for Mac was like a new thing. So like, how about we work on that and then we can work on the audio stuff. And then, unfortunately, I never did the audio thing. I kind of wish I could go back and like do that now. But I kind of actually enjoyed the process a lot because it turns out I was actually able to do it. I was very surprised because I'm not really a programmer, and to this day I still consider myself more a musician first, programmer second, which makes zero sense. I haven't been long in 10 years, but that's my brain does.
Right. Wow.
And I enjoyed that enough to where I also looked at another game called Eversion, which is I really loved that game. And since I had time, I just cold emailed the guy and said, you know, I just want to make a Linux version just for the fun of it. Like I'll this tiny amount of money because as a musician, like, you know, wow, $50 a night, great.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right.
And but at that time, Humble Bundle was at its height because they had just released like Humble Bundle 5, which had like every major game for like the last couple of years. They made like $5 million in one bundle.
Oh my gosh.
And so I think they had approached me because they had this whole like queue, like this backlog of stuff that they wanted in bundles that needed ports. And so they just like, we talked really briefly. It was me and Jeff Rosen and maybe one other guy, might have been Every Blood, I forget. It's been a long time. And then they just like gave me these contracts and the numbers were already written down. And like as a musician, I'm like, wait a minute, you can have zeros on the right side of the number? Whoa! So
is that how much I owe you to do this?
I know.
Right.
It was to the point where like once the checks started coming in, like I remember I was done with like my summer classes because I was still in school doing all this, right?
Wow.
And I was like with my mom, and we were just like sitting, like, you know, it was like late at night. We were just awake, and all of a sudden my mom's like, "Are you going to go back to school in the fall?" And I was like
I'm glad you. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm rich.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. So and then just for 10 years, I just never stopped.
Wow.
So it's 69 games in. You know.
So basically you did have some schooling doing it, but you're self-taught, right? Like it's from just you getting in there and digging in and like tinkering around and reading and talking with other people and things like that. Like this is all you. Like you didn't like you mentioned, like you went to school for music. But you know, like I think that's quite common though. Like a lot of people go to school for one thing and they end up doing something else, right? You know, not always.
I have to emphasize also, like the thing that I always have to explain, certainly with people who are like point out like my success is that, you know, I to this day I always refer to it as I accidentally made a company. I didn't. It wasn't like some master plan to make this happen. It was just like it just snowballed, and it's like, well, I can't go back. I've got the job that I was going to school for. It's weird,
right? Yeah. And I love the fact that like you took the one job for the audio. Like you secretly wanted to make the Linux port for yourself, so that's the only reason you did it. And then they find out, and they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that. So I mean, like you're making these opportunities for yourself. That's just an amazing story. Funny, but it's amazing too. Yeah.
And like it was like, is to talk about like the craziest luck too, because like not even 2 weeks after we started the project, Valve announced Steam for Linux. So it's like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my, that's awesome.
That's awesome.
it's like I don't. It's one of those things where like I'm not being cynical. I'm just being honest. Like if it had happened literally at any other time, I wouldn't be here. So,
The right guy at the right time, right?
yeah. Like the dumbest luck possible.
So here, another question here. Again, maybe you can or you can't answer. Are there any other games? Maybe, okay, let's see, maybe this we could say. Not specific titles. Are there any other games that you're currently working on porting to Stadia?
Actually,
the
I can
moment?
say no because
Okay.
and so that actually I can be pretty clear on. I don't have any Stadia games, not because I don't want to, but because
Right.
I actually, and this is another thing that I think that Stadia customers will want to know is because they definitely have kind of angled Stadia as it's the big AAA stuff, it's the biggest games of the year, they're all going to be on Stadia. And they do have some indie stuff too, like of course Celeste is in there, and Jackbox is kind of like at the upper end of the indie spectrum.
Yeah.
I think something that I think would do Stadia a lot of good is I sort of jokingly have 2 tiers of business, which is I have my indie clients and I have my independent clients. The difference between the two is a couple zeros at the end of the number. So there's certainly some indie stuff that I work on for Stadia, but Stadia has like they were offering like a lot of money for some of these games. Like sometimes like one game was like a retirement.
Really good. Oh wow.
And so I was like, well, I mean, and so for me, it's like, well, hey guys, like I have all this infrastructure built for you already. Like, if you give me that kind of money, I can give you like 40 games in a year. Like I'm not even, that's not an exaggeration. Like I could like go down my list and see what games like follow their guidelines, and I could just like that have a Stadia version ready. All you have to do is get the developer to sign off on it, give me the check, the initial, and then I'll do it.
So there you go. If anybody's out there watching, Ethan's your man here. He can hook you up for a good price too, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is I think there's certainly some people are not super excited about like small independent games, but I think there's a value in giving those types of games some room anyway, because of course that's how you get games like Among Us, like this game from 2 years ago that just exploded 2 years later. And of course, like if you want to kind of offer some like goodwill to developers, is kind of give them that room, because the biggest fear that other artists have on other platforms, like certainly the fact that like everybody's on streaming services now, but independent developers can't survive on there. Like it's already like artists, like musicians and filmmakers, like they can't survive on like streaming platforms now, and developing games is like way more expensive than that. So like it's that big fear that independent developers might get swallowed up into a system that is just not modeled after that. And Stadia actually has the weird exception to that, because of course they do technically make you buy the game on Stadia, which might seem weird, but as far as like avoiding that issue of not compensating artists enough, it's actually pretty nice. So it's like
revenue.
So yeah, and I think I could work on more Stadia games if that window for independent developers is more open, because again, I could hammer them out one by one like so fast.
Easily.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So here's a question here from in the chat. Did you have any like in your work with bringing games over achievements? Like, is that something you had to add specific for Stadia? Did you have any involvement in adding achievements to the games for Celeste or Jackbox?
Interestingly, not exactly. Every game has achievements, and so really it's just a matter of hooking up, like getting the metadata up, and then getting the APIs hooked up, because it's like unlock achievement or like store stats or things like that. The thing that is sort of interesting for Stadia is that this is where I'm going to need some insight from players a little bit, because I know how it works, but I don't know what it looks like.
Okay.
Because like basically there's like these stats that like if you look up like their profile and they're running like a specific game, there might be like a stat like, you know, number of times die or starburst collected and things like that. So like Stadia is kind of unique in that they actually have like a very specific subset of things they want to display as stats, and so
Right.
I think Xbox used to do it. I don't think they do it anymore. But yeah, it was basically just a matter of like, you know, coming up with fun stats, and a lot of that is just like I'll build the API connection there, and then I'll just tell the studio like, hey, I need like 3 things I can track, and you just throw it together. Because you guys don't know what to track. I mean, I'm not really like like a game designer type guy, and plus like you guys who made the game know all kinds of weird stuff they can track. Because for me, I would be like cynical and be like, you know, number of times jumped. Like
some of those things are in Google Takeout. If you go,
I was about to mention that. Yeah,
there's a file that shows all these individual game measurements. It's kind of interesting, like how many deaths and kills and stuff, right?
So I think it's the only platform that does that, where we can actually have a look at these stats as players. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. I think that's sort of the unique thing, is that while Xbox was sort of phasing that out, Stadia sort of phased it in again. So I mean, it's a neat thing. So, but yeah, achievements at this point. It's like just everybody has achievements, just wiring the API. Stadia's API for achievements is great. So.
All right. Yeah. So you get the outline set up, and then the studio just tells you, okay, this, and this, and you plug it in and go.
Yeah. That's sort of like hypothetically, if they were going to bring like more Jackbox games, I think so. Like that would be an example of something they may have to like look back at and see if, you know, if they had that from like an Xbox version, or if they have to make new ones and things like that.
Right. Wow. Okay. So as far as, I guess you would do then testing, like once you do all your porting and everything over, you do testing locally, or is there like specific servers that you upload to first and kind of test it that way? Or is the testing process of games any different than say like Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo?
It's pretty close to how it is on console. It's not exactly the same, because, you know, for like a console version, like you would just deploy the binary to the console. Sometimes you stream it, sometimes you don't.
Right.
Stadia is a little interesting because it's like there are like dev nodes that you can like get and have like in the office or whatever. But there's like that inclination where you just want to be like, I just want to like SSH into it and just run it and have it all be local and make sure that it all works. But to Stadia's credit, like it's a cloud platform. You should probably test it as a cloud target. And so it's one of those things where I hate them, but I respect them for you know, actually forcing us to like kind of dog through the product, because I guarantee you, like if developers weren't forced to do that, they wouldn't do it. So like I get it. But, you know, and so and I do a lot of like actually. The funny sort of thing is, like, you can see over here, like I have all this like hardware over here, but up until like 2019, like this box right here and the laptop that I'm talking to you guys on right now were the only computers I had that ran the entire operation for like 8 years. It was only until like I started making contributions to like Proton that I got these 2 white boxes here, and then there's a Stadia dev node in the office somewhere. I don't know if they posted pictures of it, so I don't know if I want to point it out.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
It's just a box. I don't know.
Wow, that's
you're fired.
Yeah. So I guess another question in here from Fletch here asking, do you play on Stadia yourself? Like, are you like what platforms maybe do you play on, including Stadia, Nintendo, Xbox, PC, or?
So I'm mostly at my core, I am first and always a Linux gamer. I care a lot about, you know, the ability to play games locally, and having local control and owning a local copy for yourself. That's not to say that I'm not into the idea of streaming. Like, for example, Steam has a whole like remote play system. And I think what makes Stadia interesting isn't just the fact that I can target it super easily, but more the idea that it actually does kind of add to the conversation of, you know, the viability of streaming. Maybe not to the conversation of ownership, but the idea that you can have streaming as a way of accessing your library.
Right.
For example, I kind of like the idea of like I have my PC running and like I can take like a portable system and like stream games to it, and that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
The ownership question is definitely one that you have to like really address though, because as someone who cares, I'm not a guy that's super into politics, but the thing I have to admit as a Linux user is the whole getting into Linux is in itself a political endeavor.
Yeah.
And so, the way that I would explain it in a way that I think is a little bit more concrete. And this, of course, but I also have to preface this with the fact that technically I'm not a lawyer, so obviously you could go talk to a lawyer about this. But the thing that I think makes the conversation of ownership something that that is very easy to understand is the GNU General Public License is a software license that basically says if you are given a copy of a program, there are a few rules that are required to distribute it correctly, and one of them is source code access.
Yeah.
The thing about Stadia, for example, is that you can make a GPL licensed game without distributing the source code. Because when you play a game on Stadia, you're not distributing the software. You're distributing a video of the software. And so it's the whole point of the GPL is to make it so that source code is available for anyone who has access to the program. And so it's that weird loophole in Stadia is something that I think Ryan Gordon and I were we talked about it briefly, and I remember like we just kind of threw it out there as like a weird, I don't know if it was a joke or just a thought that we had, and it's something that I've been thinking about continuously ever since. Because I think there is value, for example, in like having like a remote system. Like obviously the Steam remote problem is, you have to have a PC running, and of course there has to be good connections on both ends. Whereas obviously Google's kind of good infrastructure, so there's value in having it there. But for me, Stadia is not the exact form of Stadia as it exists now. I'm very particular about how I play my games, but I think they added they throw an interesting thing into the conversation of the viability of making streaming work well, and the mix of locally owned and streamed, wholly streamed, things like that. And so, yeah, it's something that I think is neat. But I think there was a second question, wasn't there?
There was one from David. He was asking.
Oh, I pulled it up. It's the Outlook on Cloud, and I think that which is basically
on the same. So like as I was saying, with like the idea that Stadia could exist alongside desktop Linux and have local and cloud be together. I think that's something that both developers and customers could kind of could think about and really try and approach it from trying to do both, because I think that's something more.
And there's definitely going to be that transition period, because if you think to like when Steam came out for PC, right? Like it's all digital. Back at that time, like the norm now for PC is digital. Finding like a physical game on PC is next to impossible, right? It's like really uncommon. But at the time,
all the physical games I've worked on games, and that's all the ones I've ever had physical.
Oh my gosh! Wow, crazy.
And of course, at the time there was such a backlash on the digital. It's horrible, and we don't actually own it, and and all this thing. So now we fast forward where digital's now is starting to sell more than physical copies on consoles, right? Because it's more convenient and things like that, and we have the game preservation and all that, and all that as well. But it's gonna take so cloud gaming, although it's been around for what, like I think even with Genki it's been like almost 10 years, really, if you think about on live as well, like all those different iterations. So in honesty, probably longer than that. So it's going to be a slow process of shifting over, just like we saw like with music and things like that. Like, it's all, again, with music, digital and streaming and things like that. Like, who goes out and buys? I'm sure there are. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, right? But as far as like who goes out to Best Buy or Walmart or whatever and goes to buy like the latest CD? Well, you really don't do that. I mean,
It's basically
there
like
are
me and a bunch of hipsters.
right. I mean, so way of saying is it's just that slow process of it's a change. It's not normal. It's something different. So I mean, personally myself, it's still, and we can see the way that Xbox is marketing Xbox cloud gaming is. It's like it's a companion to it, not a replacement for Xbox. You could try the game out while you're downloading it to your Xbox. So they've made it very clear right now, which I think it's smart for the gamers is, it's not this threatening thing. You'll still have your computer, your console, whatever, and you'll still have that there. But I think slowly maybe give it another 10 years or so, and I think it'll be more accepted. Like, we're slowly seeing it grow over the years. So it's natural to me to see all the hate and the non-acceptance of it, and slowly as more people get used to it, and we can see now with, again, Xbox cloud gaming, it's becoming more, they've released like their big games on it, Forza, Halo, and things like that. They're first party games. So more people are getting to use it. So that just means it's better for everybody. So they can see, how it works, what it's like, and, that slow transition over as we did from the physical to the digital. I mean, that's my opinion, my feelings on it as well.
Yeah,
So,
and that's all totally right. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm just really the only thing I can just add is that I think as long as people are very vigilant about the distribution process, like for musicians, for example, like you can get to Spotify or you can like buy it on Bandcamp, and like a single Bandcamp sale is like 1 billion Spotify streams. So it's like, of course, Bandcamp has streaming too, so they have local downloads and things like that. So there's, I think keeping an open mind and sort of while also being very vigilant of the process and how things affect artists, I think will ensure that as this develops, I think as long as people are vigilant, I think it'll be a good outcome.
I understand what you mean. Yeah, go ahead.
No. You go ahead, NinjaGuy.
Okay. Yeah, I understand what you mean because the music is, I think it's the best comparison for that, just because of Spotify, right? They don't make a lot of money out of that, and that's what everyone uses, and we don't want that to happen with gaming because we do see this subscription services now with cloud gaming and even with PlayStation, like PlayStation Plus and stuff, and it is something to be careful with. We don't, because it's all about the money. It's all about getting that money to the developers, and that's what's important.
But especially for independent developers, we're excited to get 100 sales. So having that would be sad.
But and see, I think that's what something's different with Stadia as well, is because you can buy the games, but you can also subscribe to that Stadia Pro and get the select games that developers have opted in. They still get revenue of that as well. So that's, I always found it odd when hearing people say, "Oh, you still have to buy your games." Like I bought, let's see, I bought Celeste on Switch. Why can't I play it on Stadia? I'm thinking, because when have you ever been able to do that, right? Like, people like you have work to do that costs money. They need to get paid. Like, just because I buy something once doesn't mean I can play it everywhere, right? Like, you go to the movies, you buy a ticket to go see Matrix 3. Does that mean when it comes out on Blu-ray or streaming services, I get it too for free? Well, no. Like, you would never ask that, but there are some people, and they think like, well, if I'm streaming it, it should be cheaper. Well, no, you still put your heart and soul into making that game, porting that game, all that work. Why is it any different whether I have something in my hand to show for it or whether I'm playing, in like on a streaming service? I think like that the developer and everybody working on the game still deserves to earn that money because it's still the same hard work, right? So, sure, maybe if it's like a couple dollars cheaper because you don't have to press a disc and they did away with manuals now. So like, the casing and things like that, right? So that stuff just always like boggles my mind when people say that, but like even when you're buying, you go to the store and let's say you buy a game. Again, like you'd mentioned there, if you look at the end user agreement and the license there, you're not buying the game, you're buying a license so that you can play the game and it can be revoked at any time. Now I know, like with older games, like non like let's say NES, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, the old things that were not connected with online. Sure, you can put those in, and as long as the hardware works or your cartridge or the disc still works, you could play it forever. But any of like the new games that will require those updates or check in with the server there, then all they have to do is just take that down. So really it's like the way that I look at it is if I'm buying a game and I'm paying, let's say for a full AAA title, 60 American, or for us here in Canada, it's $80. I'm getting my enjoyment out of that. I get my 8, 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever, how many hours out of that. And at the end of the day, if maybe in a couple of years, if that happens for whatever reason that it goes away, I've got my enjoyment out of that, out of that there. If you look at dollar per dollar, again, I'll go with the movies. You go to a movie, it's an hour, 2 hours long, and you're like $20 for a ticket, $10 for a hot dog, some pop, parking, all that stuff, and you're getting just those couple hours enjoyment out of it. But with a game, you get those 20, 30, 40 hours or even years of experience out of it. So, I think there's both ways. Again, people are just, it's change, and people always are resistant to change. So, early adopters like us here in the chat and on the stream here, we're all gun ho and ready for that, pushing forward in that new technology, while still appreciating that there are some people that still do like the physical copies, and like having to like you having the the game or the code there to run locally. Totally understand that, and perfectly fine in my books as well.
Yeah, and I think the thing that I would point out, because I think because it's something that I think about a lot, is sort of when that game gets taken down, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can certainly like kind of get fussy about how like you probably should have been able to make it so that you can have like an offline version, or like
right,
make it so that like the game does not have like always online DRM on the desktop.
Right.
Like, let's but in Stadia certainly brings that to the conversation of like if the game goes away, it's whether for the entertainment value, certainly like you can think of it as like how much time you got out of it for what you paid.
Right.
But then there's the art side of it, which is it's important that we have access to the art for the time, even if it's only from an academic point of view.
Right.
Exactly.
We historically have a terrible record of preserving things. Even the biggest companies in the world, like Nintendo, it's like a subscription service and it's limited, and the ability to emulate hardware is given kind of it's kind of dumped on, like for no particularly good reason. And so I think Stadia certainly brings a worry to that, because I think people do have a justifiably cynical view of the idea of that when a game goes away, studios just don't give a crap and just let it get erased from history.
Right.
Stadia arguably could counteract that with the fact that they are like basically like a cloud service, and they have the infrastructure and could hypothetically make it so that a game does run pretty much indefinitely, as long as they have compatibility with the system. So you could have it longevity in that way. But
well, they do actually. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off here. So, as part of like an agreement, like when you purchase games on Stadia, for example, like Football Manager 20, I think it's 2020. That like so. Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah. So 2020, it came out on Stadia, but now it's been taken down from the store. As long as you purchase that, you still have access to it regardless. So that's something that they mentioned there. Like, if you buy a game, that you still have access to it. Of course, as long as the service is active. And if the service isn't active, then there's like a monetary value that they'll refund you. So I think Google's done a good job in that aspect of trying to ease those fears. I know that that's not okay for everybody, but I think it's a start. It's a good way to help start easing people over, again, books, digital books, CDs, music, movies, all that stuff. So to me, it's a natural evolution, but I understand both sides of it.
Yeah, and like,
Yeah.
and even like, if you want to look at the like opposite extreme, like I think I've gone on record on this before, but like, if Google decided to make like a local version of like the Stadia system, I would be all over it, because developing for it's so nice. Like the idea that like I could have like a local console target that has that same like API and portability. Like, I love that. But I get why it's staying like unified in that way.
Yeah.
Maybe though, you never know. You never know. Maybe they'll make some kind of portable device, to come up with.
Like an offline
You never
plug.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Right.
Exactly.
So is there anybody in the chat here? I'm just looking, I'm trying to scroll through it. If you have any questions, let us know.
We got Squid here who
For
ask,
Ethan.
has a good question, I find. He asked, what is Ethan's favorite RPG? If I'm not mistaken, I've seen that somewhere. I'm kind of curious about that too.
Do you play? Yeah. Do you play RPGs?
I do. In fact, I wrote something down about this recently. I gotta go find it. I just scribbled it down. Like, I was thinking of like all these games that I was thinking. I think, yeah. So I even have it written down. So like, I thought of like a bunch of RPGs that I was, because I'm pretty much into like the action like genre, like or mostly like Metroid type games. Like when Metroid Dread came out, I don't usually have a lot of time to play games like all the way to the end. Usually I do like, I'll play like the first 15 minutes and then I'll say, okay, I kind of get it, and then I'll finish it if I feel like it. Sometimes I won't. The first 6 weeks that Metroid Dread was out, I finished it 5 times.
Oh my gosh! Wow!
Holy crap!
I got my any percent time down to 3 hours. So.
Oh my gosh! I can't believe that.
I love like Metroid Dread is like my favorite. I was so cynical going into that, and like I've played it so many times. It's so good.
Crazy.
So, like, the RPGs, I wrote down 3 when I was kind of listing them out. Like Paper Mario was one that I probably played out like once a year.
Nice.
Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is another one that I probably play once a year, and then I actually put at the top Animal Crossing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think I don't know what to, because like it's funny. I think I might have even written down. I think I might have intended that to be the original one. Because I think for me, like, it's not a RPG in the sense of like levels and like, equipment and things like that. Certainly, New Horizons kind of goes too far for me. Like, it adds a bunch of scarcity, and the timing of it is horrible, and I have a lot of complaints about that one. But like, I go to like the Wii version and the GameCube version. Like, I do play those kind of regularly. And I think that kind of falls into the category. Maybe not in the most traditional sense. Like, it's not like it's not like Chrono Trigger or anything. But those are the 3 that I kind of had written down. Sort of the ones that stand out to me.
That's good. I mean, that's good. So Jack has a question here, and this probably doesn't mean technical. I might not know what I'm saying, but you probably know spot on what he's saying here. Do you feel using Wine, Proton, DXVK, VKD3D is a viable option for porting games to Stadia? Can you use those tools and still integrate the Stadia SDK for achievements, etc.?
Right. So I'll even go down the list. So Wine is basically it's basically a compatibility layer that arguably in the last year has sort of started bordering on emulation, but people can argue about that somewhere else. Proton is basically Valve's specialized version of Wine that basically like makes it so you can launch a Windows game through Steam, and it like interacts with the Steam client as if it was native. Even though it's definitely not. DXVK is a Vulkan-based implementation of Direct3D 9 and 10 and 11, and VKD3D is a Vulkan implementation of Direct3D 12. And so DXVK and VKD3D certainly have the chance to be viable because, of course, if you can make like your Direct3D renderer work well with those 2 implementations of Vulkan, certainly there's a way to make that work well. Wine and even a specialized version like Proton, I don't know if that's the best idea because Wine at its core is a Windows implementation, and there's a very big difference between a Windows implementation and a Windows API implementation. Like VXVK is more an API implementation, whereas Wine is basically like trying to act as an entire Windows system, including a Wine server. And there's like this whole, because there's this whole thing you have to do to make processes interact with each other, and you basically have to have like a whole, like basically a window management implementation, like all this stuff that for Stadia, not only would it be a lot of work, but it kind of defeats the purpose, because the whole thing about Stadia is that it's basically, unless you have like Chromium, I don't know, maybe someone has Chromium in their Stadia game, I don't know, but like you know, it's basically just one process that directly interacts with the GTP system, and that's kind of it. Whereas with a whole Wine implementation, you're basically like spinning up a server, you're loading up the thing, you might have to get the VC redist install, like you have to have a prefix that's pre-made somehow, and then make it, then you have to have a Wine PE version of the GGP SDK, and make it interact with the, there's a whole, I'm sure someone will be desperate enough to do it, but I think for what Stadia is, and the fact that it's in trying to gear itself as a real console, I think that would, sort of like how I feel about the Steam Deck, I feel like it defeats the purpose, and I don't think it's going to deliver on what people think it's going to promise. It's not. Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm horribly biased here, because I mean I like to think I'm not, because technically I worked on Proton for some time, but like but I like, Wine is a great preservation project. Like I really like Wine as a preservation tool, and in the team CodeWeavers, who basically is the lead development team for Wine, like I loved working with those guys. But the idea that it's a replacement for targeting an operating system directly is kind of weird, because we're usually fussy about making things like dependency free and high performance and things like that, and so I think that I think that covers it.
Yeah. So basically, like the mentioned here that you were just talking about, they would put like a lot of overhead on the system there. As far as performance wise, you're adding, you know, that much more overhead to the game rather than using the direct tools, like, you know, what you did for Celeste and Jackbox Party 8, where it's more efficient and at the heart. I don't know if it's right to say it, like at the hardware level, like a one-to-one rather than try and like an emulate. Does that make sense or no?
It's more at the OS level, because like hardware, again, like DXVK, like there's technically the layer of, you know, the layer between the actual Direct3D code and the Vulkan output that comes through it. But I think there's a big difference between having an API layer and like trying to have this entire Windows subsystem running just for this one game, and like all the stuff that comes with that, which it's sort of, again, I'm sure someone's going to try and do it anyway, but like it just seems like a very expensive hack, which is the thing that makes it kind of intriguing. Like you can have hacks in games, but like if you're going at the level where you're rerunning a fake Windows on your system, I don't know.
It's not worth it, right?
Okay. And so Jack here says, I get your preference for purity. He was sort of thinking, if the Steam Deck is doing it, install Wine and all its dependencies and overhead, why not Stadia?
Specifically because Stadia is more streamlined and is not trying to do, it's despite the fact that like a Linux desktop and a Stadia version is so close, that's mostly at the application level. The operating system that runs Stadia is not in the same as this deck. Like, because the deck is basically running a whole Windows system. They have a very specialized system called GameScope, which basically just makes it so like the game window, it thinks it's a window, but in reality it's like composited as like a full screen application. And for Stadia, like there's like it's one of those things you have to point out, like there's no Windows system. It's like it's not like it's running X or Wayland or any of that. It's you're basically making a Vulkan context and piping it to something that generates the video that gets streamed. And so the idea that you're like wedging this whole Windows system that you would basically have to write to make it look like a Windows application, and then have it work in that way, like audio, like things like audio, like I think would be okay, but like getting it to work with the Wine server combined with the like getting the whole like video implementation. Like right now, I think just today they were calling for testing for like the Wayland version of the Wine video subsystem. And that's going to be a ton of work, and that's with a system that is supposed to actually work with windowed applications. So,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
it's just a lot of work, and I think Stadia. I feel like they'll put in the hustle necessary to get people to keep making native Stadia applications, even if it wasn't like the big explosive success that they were probably hoping for. But
Right.
it's worth.
Yeah.
It's like me and Desktop Linux. Like I'm gonna keep hustling and try and get this. Like I'm gonna keep, banging my head against this wall because I know it's the right thing to do, even though nobody wants me to do it anymore. I'm gonna do it anyway.
Wow, that's awesome. So I don't know, NinjaGuy or Exception. Do you have any other questions for Ethan?
I'll let the exception go with next because I don't think he asked any question yet. But yeah, if you have any,
Okay.
that'd be great.
So we've sunk a whole pile of time into Jackbox games in our family. I've got
Nice.
a couple kids, and the port's fantastic, right? Like it's just like every other Stadia game. It's just seamless. So good work on that regard.
Thank you.
And then
it works.
what do you imagine when you hear people that are talking about things like Stadia should just port it? It should be easy to just port it, and there's just all this complexity and all this work, right? When you see things like that, what do you kind of imagine when you see people talking like that?
It's again. I think it's sort of again a two-pronged thing where I think Stadia. I think the reason I was so surprised about the Stadia audience is that I think they're coming from more of a console background, as far as I can tell. And I think there's definitely a perception that it should be kind of simple because, to be fair, like, and you get to the AAA scale, like they have like teams per system. And and this is something that you could, like when a vendor like comes to a studio and says like we're going to give you like X guarantees or advances or whatever systems they have to try and make it viable, and there should be the culture should make it like pretty straightforward. Technically, it may not be quite as straightforward. Like I'm sure like getting Destiny 2 running is like a lot of work. Even though like they had like the ability to get the team together, and then like sort of but I think at the end of the day, even if you got all of these people convinced that it was a complicated thing, I do think that with that in mind, people would still say you should try to do it. That's sort of a contrast. That's the contrast to the last few months of basically like every day as a Linux guy, like having the perception of like Desktop Linux go from being something that people were really willing to put into work to try and support into to like people knew, like the Linux gamers knew, like they're the ones who know better than most that what work goes into it and how those things are made and things like that. The thing that has just been really it's been the number one thing that has kind of like pushed me to have like this disillusioned outlook of what I've been doing is the fact that they don't even care how easy or hard it is. They just say they've kind of all started to give up, which is not good for certain.
Yeah.
If trying to like pitch this, like if all customers are saying is give up, then it's hard to make that pitch. Even if they think it's the right thing to do, if they don't like, if they let that mindset become the norm, and if that's the narrative, that can be, that can be hugely discouraging and can outright stop projects from happening. So, and I think Stadia gamers probably are pushed in a lot of ways to kind of get into that mindset where it's like, okay, I think it's over. But and you're definitely kind of pushed if you're, trying to make a system viable and people don't think it's a viable system. That's just the thing you just kind of have to take that beating and be like, look, I think this is the right thing to do. And
right.
And so that's having Stadia gamers be like that was like so refreshing because after so many months of just like everyone taking a huge jump on the last 10 years of what I've been doing, like having that little glimmer be like, hey, this is what it used to be like.
Thirsty.
So that's
So I want to give a. Oh no, go ahead. Sorry, no, I don't want to.
Oh yeah, like just to wrap up, like I think the two things is like it was immensely rewarding to have that positive feedback and have people be really excited about it. And I think it was weird for me to see like even Linux gamers be so cynical about people who are trying to make their platform work. Like whether or not you agree that the platform is viable, you still have to, if you believe the platform is viable, put in the work to make it happen. So to see Linux gamers of all people be that cynical is like so hypocritical. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Tribal,
Yeah,
maybe. Right?
this is what you used to
yeah,
do.
right, exactly. You were in those shoes not so long ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
So,
I think that's something to keep in mind. Is like whether or
yeah.
not I think Stadia is viable, the fact that you can make it a rewarding experience for developers to bring it to the platform, I think provides a lot of value because like sometimes like game development sucks a lot of the time. So having customers like be happy about what they got is it means, especially for independent developers, it means so much.
Right.
To get that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Knowing that you have people that appreciate all that work that you've put into it and the satisfaction, and that's what I say. Like sometimes you see people comment on social media, oh, lazy devs, it doesn't run at 60 frames a second. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that is so insulting because just like us, you as well, everybody, like we're people too, right? So we have feelings, sure you can voice your displeasure, but I think I really, when I see that, it just makes me shake my head and it's like in disgust because I can only imagine, after putting countless hours, weekends, weeks, years, months into something and then to have people crap all over it is just like totally like you're just like really like I did all this work and now you're bitching and complaining about it. You know what I mean? So that satisfaction is that, like you've mentioned several times, the Stadia community, it's a niche, well knit community that yeah, we definitely try to show our support and gratitude to developers and the games coming out there, and it's great to hear from you as well, saying like you'd like to see that reaction there, and it's like it's not like, and again, it's not downplaying any games. So it's Jackbox Party Pack 8, right? So it's like a family oriented game. So you're getting all that support and the love from the community. And it's not like say it's not like the latest Call of Duty or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you're still getting that great support from games that maybe others might not think, oh well, yeah, that's just some party game. It means nothing. Like you're getting that appreciation, and that's what I guess it's coming down to. No matter what the game is, in the Stadia community, it's the appreciativeness of it. And I think like I've heard from many people that I've talked to is like uh, playing on Stadia for the last now 2 years. Been introduced to some indie titles that a lot of us normally wouldn't have even thought of playing before. And a lot of people have a newfound love for these indie games. And it shows you that, just, they can offer the same level of experience, the story, the gameplay, their own unique art style, just as every bit as a AAA title. So they definitely do have their place and value. And I think a lot of people in the Stadia community really do appreciate that, and that's something that that they found. And being able to talk with developers and things like that, and being able to convey our gratitude is it's so rewarding on our end as well. And just seeing like the happiness that it brings you, and makes you feel good. I did good, and people are appreciating it. Like I think that's really awesome and very unique for the community.
Yeah, and seeing and knowing that people still have an open mind about different types of games too, because
Right.
I've worked on violence simulators and things like that, and I've also worked on like a dad dating simulator, and it's nice to know that people like both. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So I want to do. I've got another question for you here. Quick shout out to Consino and Jack. Thank you for the super chats. I really do appreciate that. Didn't want to let that go unknown here. A question: If you still are you okay on time, or do you have to run, or
I had no
no?
other do.
All nighters.
Okay. Okay. Good. Um, so maybe like porting games over to Stadia, if you compare it to, because you've done for Nintendo, you've done for Xbox, have you done on PlayStation as well?
I'm looking into PlayStation next year,
Okay.
actually. So.
Okay. So compared to like porting a game over to Xbox or Nintendo, how is Stadia? Is it any different, more difficult, easier, or like just on your opinion, generally speaking?
I would imagine if you asked most, like I imagine most of where Stadia games come from is from most people who work on console games. I imagine most console developers probably would say it's basically the same.
Okay.
Because like most of them aren't Linux devs primarily, and so like it's just like most of the process of building a Stadia game is very much like a console. Like it's it's got you can use Visual Studio and
Mhm.
run deployment automatically and have the debugger be what you would expect for other consoles and things like that. And it's Clang, which like everybody except Microsoft uses at this point. Like they totally took over.
Mhm.
And I think for me, it's just uniquely interesting that it is that because so much of the infrastructure is so similar. Like I sort of have this unfair opinion where like I think it's like the nicest console environment ever because it's because I can basically just use like my regular desktop toolchain, like you can
Right.
get my build system that's used for Stadia builds from my like plan file, like it's the same thing.
So you don't need to you don't have to buy that dev kit or the specialized hardware for it. Like you could do it on a pretty much everyday computer, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, basically, I just make a desktop Linux version, and then really, when I do the Stadia deployment, it's basically treated more as deployment.
Oh,
And
okay.
so, I do have like dev nodes here, because it is nice to be able to SSH into them and things like that.
Mhm.
But like, so someone hypothetically, if they didn't want to know, could just because it's a cloud system, they can like get a reservation for like whatever they need to do the deployment and testing and things like that. So it's basically like a console.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think for me, it's at least from the perspective of a Linux guy, like Ryan Gordon also did. I think maybe he did do 64 for Stadia. I don't know if he's done it anymore.
Mhm.
Like I think when I showed him SDL Stadia and I was like, oh yeah, you just swap out the binary and run it. He was like, I don't know, dude. and then I like get a message from him. He's like, I cannot believe this actually works. Like,
Yeah, right. Yeah. See, like that's so awesome.
yeah.
And,
So.
and like you said, you've worked on 69 games. You said like if you had people approach you, there's like 40 pretty much that you could port over right away with relative ease. Like
Right. Yeah.
so, yeah. So you've built those, that tool and those infrastructure and things like that, and you've learned things about it where it's simple. So that would be awesome to see. I really do hope that you get more work from the developers
Yeah.
here, and I hope maybe again if anybody developers are watching or knows anybody, for sure. I'm going to throw it up here. Look at this. We got Ethan Lee. There's your website, and while we're looking at that, how do you pronounce? What's the story behind that? So we'll start with that. How do you pronounce that flibbit jibbo? Is that what it is? I don't know.
Well, since you guys laughed, now you guys have to try too.
Okay.
You're not getting away with this.
All right, I'll go first.
All
All right.
Nailed it.
There you go. Yeah, you got it. Flibbity-jibby-bo.
Very close.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's a flibbity by bow. So the I is a long I. But other than that, you're really close.
Okay.
Story? No.
No, I mean, there's got to be something behind that. You didn't just come up random with that, right? Like, is there any like meaning behind it, or
There's definitely no meaning behind it, but there's definitely
Right.
like a practical use in the sense that like
okay?
I needed a new username, but I was tired of like having my username be like common with somebody else, like somebody else had the same like gamer tag or whatever. It's like, you know what? I got an idea.
So you just came up here with.
Oh
Okay,
my
so let's hear you pronounce it, Ethan. Here, so I know exactly. I'm horrible at pronouncing names, so this is
Yeah, so Flibbit Jib by Bo is how you pronounce it. Most people just call me Flibbit. It's fine.
okay. Flip it, yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. All right, flip it. That's awesome.
Flip it. Now we should all
that's-
say it all together at the same time.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome. Yeah, and definitely check out Ethan's website there. You could see your portfolio of games.
And it's all in order
all-
of from the first game he ever worked on to the last game, which is kind of
Wow.
cool. It's all in that order, so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and just to
It's
see
so long.
some of these Towerfall extension.
Yeah.
Transistor. Wow. Alt
Dust, which
Delete.
I've noticed. I think you have dust in the background, right? I think, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken, yeah. I thought I saw
yeah,
it. There
I
it
got
is. Yeah,
this collector's edition of the Switch version, which I also worked on. So
very nice.
Oh wow.
Very
So
beautiful music in the game. Yeah.
yeah. So it shows here also Streets of Rage 4. So you brought that over to Linux and Mac OS.
yep. Interestingly,
Wow.
I kind of jokingly said like, hey, if they ever approach you for Stadia, like I'll order that one too. And I think they
Yeah.
had Blitworks work on the console version, so I think they ended up doing the Stadia version as well. So
Mhm.
it was kind of a just interesting overlap
Yeah.
to where Stadia is. Like sometimes console developers work on it, sometimes I work on it. So it's this interesting
Yeah.
thing in the middle.
Yeah. It's all
Wow.
about contracts, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And getting those contracts. All right. Is there, let's see, anybody else in the chat that might have a question for Ethan or anything else maybe that we might have missed, Ethan, that you want to talk about? Or I know we did cover a lot of things here. Wow. It's
Would you
like,
like to, to advertise yourself? To, say something about like where people can find you and
Yeah, I mean, I think
what do you do?
the website has like all my links. Like to the one, I guess the one for customers that might be interesting is like I have like a GitHub sponsors program, which lets me.
Oh,
It's how I do maintenance of things like FNA and SQL, like without having to work on a specific game. Like obviously working on games is great, but of course there's like the long-term maintenance, and that helps me kind of to ensure that like I actually just updated this week I think a game from 2013 like just this week because I try to make it so that the games still run really well. They're robust. They have all the nice performance things and controller support and things like that. So I think that's the one thing. And then, as I always tell people, like with the website, the portfolio, my email's at the bottom of the page. So scroll down all the way past those games so you know what I've worked on. And then you can hit the email if you think it's
nice.
interesting.
Awesome.
yes, yeah, that is awesome. Well, I really do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us here today. I know I just reached out to you earlier in the week, and it's a funny story. Is that we saw your tweets about Jackbox, and I think I don't know. Maybe it's just my memory or not. Maybe somebody like when Celeste came out for Stadia, I don't know. Maybe you posted something somewhere or somebody did, and I remember them like the post that was referencing it was just like a text post. I don't even know if it was on Reddit or where it was. Is something about like someone was commenting on like the similarities and it's not that much different and things like that.
Yeah.
And like just so it probably was you and like a while ago, and people in the Stadia community just have an amazing knack for finding all these Stadia related posts. I know
Yeah.
on Discord, I have a Discord and we have so many people in there, and also on Twitter as well. It's like you'll find out like, oh, well, here's this, here's that posted on Twitter, on Reddit, and it's like, how do you find this stuff? Or jobs on LinkedIn, or this, they're hiring for this, and this, and so much, and so it's totally amazing. And I actually had somebody here. You were on our list to contact to get on the show here. And I'm looking here real quick who contacted me so I could give a shout out. Here it is. Stoked for Good sent me a message on Tuesday, and let's see. He sent me the link to the tweet that you posted on, was that Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday. So you posted a tweet on Tuesday that says, another launch. I totally missed this. In addition to 8, I also helped bring the Jackbox Party Pack 7 to Stadia as well. This was actually the title I focused on for the SDL2 plus Vulkan work, and it transferred really well to the latest pack. So 8 got released first.
Yep.
So he sent me that link, and he's like, "Hey, you should get this guy on your show." And I said, "You know what? Like definitely, Ethan's on our list here." He says, "Send him a message." So I sent you a message, a DM on Twitter, and literally like within minutes later, you responded. You're like, "Sure, yeah, it sounds fun," and like just like that, like you agreed to come on, and days later, here we are talking, and it's just amazing. I know you're super busy. You've given us so much insight, answered so many questions. Just thank you so much. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for all of your hard work, Celeste, Jackbox Party Pack 7 and 8, anything, really else that you do. Yeah, it's just amazing. And as always, the Stadia community is so appreciative of the work that you do, and hopefully, you'll be picking up some other ports to work on here soon. Would be fantastic, and you're always welcome to come back on whenever you'd like to chat and talk. If you have anything you want to talk about, we're here, and it's been a great time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's a lot of fun, and I think people are always like hungry for like really detailed information, and I think it's fun to get into those things because game developers aren't always like super good at talking about the details, and so it's great to be able to do that here because I think it makes for smarter customers, which is great.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, Ethan, thanks again, and I hope you have a great rest of a Friday evening and a fantastic weekend.
Yeah, thanks again, and best of luck with all going on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you
so much,
and yeah, we'll get your contact details entered into the description of this video as well. We'll tweet it out again, of course, tag you so anybody can check out. Follow Ethan, our new Stadia friend here, Master Linux Porter. And it's such a great time learning about you and how everything came about, and just the story of Ethan and your travels and your experiences and things like that. It's truly amazing.
Well, yeah. So thanks for thinking it was. I'm glad it was interesting.
Alrighty. All right. Take care, Ethan.
Thank you.
All right. See ya. Bye. Oh boy! Wow, that was awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ethan is a fantastic person here. So nice, super nice here. Like, I can't believe he answered all the questions, went into detail. We had people in the chat there that were asking some really tech oriented questions there, and he answered those with ease and without any hesitation. So the most interesting thing that I found from Ethan, although I love the story about how, he's pretty much self-taught, like, went to school for a musician, and then got the job working on an audio, but he secretly only took it because he wanted to create like a Linux version of that tool. It's just, it's so awesome. Like, he's built this framework and this foundation to be able to port those indie titles over to Stadia. And he's like, he has 40 that he literally could port in the blink of an eye. So hopefully people are watching. Maybe the right people will get the word out here, and that would be great. Like, the more games, the better. I always say that.
Mhm.
So yeah. Awesome. Well, wow. We've been going for a little while here. So let's see. We've got Exception on here. Thank you so much, Exception. I appreciate you joining us today here. And let's just talk a little bit about yourself here, and then we'll briefly touch on a little bit of news, and probably call the stream. We could probably go on for like 4 or 5 hours, really, like we did last night with the Game Awards. But no, it was interesting. So again, Exception, you're on the list, right, of a guest that we wanted to bring on the show here.
Yeah.
But yeah, you sent me an interesting email that I've not had anybody else really, done that wanted to be on the show, and you provided a great, little about background information on yourself.
Yeah.
I was
I
thinking
remember that.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe you could kind of share with us who is Exception. Like tell us a little bit about yourself, your involvement. How did you find out about Stadia? Your involvement in the community for those that may not know, and kind of just like the 411 on yourself, as much as comfortable as you feel sharing, of course.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was, I used to play games quite a bit, like in university and, as a teenager and a kid and stuff like that. And eventually, when I had kids, I kind of just tapered off, just didn't really get into it, which is common, right? People have kids and, like, you got more important things to work on.
Yeah.
And as soon as Google announced Stadia, and I'm into the Google ecosystem, if you call it that, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at it and going, man, that's for me. That's like, I could get into that casually, just
Mm-hmm.
sort of, maybe I'll play a game here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right.
1 hour or two, like a
Yeah,
week, right?
Yeah.
I could spare some
Yeah.
time, right? It's easy, right? I don't
Yeah.
have to go buy a console or anything. And, so I was like kind of hyped up for the idea of it, not even really for gaming, if that makes any
Mhm.
sense, right? I was
Mhm.
just like, this just seems so frictionless.
Yeah.
And so I, pre-ordered the founder's kit, and it's just been crazy since then, right? I've just been, I play it all the time. I've got tons of games
You,
that I
you manage a
buy.
few communities too, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so we had a lot of fun with Ghost Recon, right? When it came out, there's no crossplay. Like a lot of people have tried the games with the free weekends and stuff, and the PvP it's fun. I used to play Counter-Strike and things like that, so the itch was always there, and so we couldn't really get together enough people often to do things like the raids in the game, and especially the PvP. You need like you need 8 people, and there's no matchmaking with PC or anything. So we would just hound people to come and join us. We'd see someone in the game and was like, come join our Discord. And so we started with like 5, 10, 15 people, and eventually it grew because everyone else was kind of thirsty. And so we just sort of did that through grassroots. So that one's fun. And then when Rainbow Six came out, we did the same thing. We kind of started up a Discord so that we could get Stadia only people, right? A lot of people were apprehensive about playing against sweaty PC players, mouse and keyboard players. So
Yeah.
Now, both games you said Rainbow Six, so I think you meant like Rainbow Six Breakpoint, right? And then Siege. Or...
yeah, so Ghost Recon Breakpoint.
Oh, Ghost Recon. Okay, that's what you said. Okay.
Yeah, and then Rainbow Six Siege. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So, an exception. You're another fellow Canadian, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm in Calgary.
See, so that's just like I said, like ever since I've been part of the Stadia community here, I've never met so many Canadians online
Gamers,
that share the same interest. Yeah, like the gamers, like you would think it's predominantly US. And of course, there is a lot of people in the US, and we know UK as well, but I could probably name off the top of my head a good 20, maybe 30 Canadian Stadia players. And that's pretty awesome. Considering, the size of the user base of Stadia as well. It's like Canada plays an important role. We know that Google's got headquarters here in Kitchener-Waterloo, that they helped the Google headquarters there. The studios helped develop software for the controller and things like that. So Google has in Canada has a very viable part and role in Stadia, and it's just so awesome to see the community, not only Canada, the US, UK, and Europe. And hopefully maybe we'll get some expansion early next year into other parts and other territories. So
we got Kessel here. Kessel Runners in the chat saying something pretty interesting. So Stadia reinvigorated my love for gaming as well. Being a father, finishing school, and working all at the same time made it difficult to game Stadia Click and Play, and it was a wrap back in 2019. So it's cool to see someone who can relate to you, exception in the same way.
Yeah, being able to switch devices and things like that, right? If you've got your living room TV, if you're in a house and you got kids and stuff like that, and to be able to have the kids playing a kids game, and like Stadia has tons of good games. Like John, you've covered them, right? NinjaGuy. People knock them all the time, right? But my kids love them. I love them. They're awesome. The price point's always good. They're well done. But then I'll be playing on controllers, and we'll be playing. I've got 4 controllers in my main living room, and the kids know how to use it. It's just they just turn it on. They got it figured out. But then if I want to play Siege on a mouse and keyboard, slide into use my computer, play it on there. If you want to play on a mobile while we're doing something else, right? It's so frictionless. There's no downloads. You're not worrying about where to go. I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's that. I think I've met lots of guys that are, dads and moms and stuff that just like getting into it. It's so easy.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we talked with Rebecca a couple of weeks ago now, The time is starting to slip. It might have been last week, but I
It
know
was
within the
last week,
last
yeah.
couple of weeks. Was it
Yeah,
last week? Okay.
yeah.
I don't know. And I know she's in the chat here as well. And it's just like, she's a mom too, has two kids, and doesn't have that dedicated time, and Stadia allows her just to be able to play, whenever she wants, pretty much wherever she wants. And it's just that ease of use, not having to worry about those updates and the hardware. You just either turn your TV on in the controller or your computer or mobile, all those different devices as well. So it's really fantastic to see. Let's see, we got some other comments here. Kessel Runner, my 4-year-old son loves playing Monster Jam, and it's nice when the wife wants to watch something on TV. I can either go Razor Kishi, yeah, or play on my Pixel Book. So
So
that's
many
that's
ways.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
crazy.
that's so fantastic.
Yeah.
So what are well, I guess maybe you've mentioned a couple of games. Exception, what are some of your favorite games on Stadia that you go back to and play on maybe a regular or semi-regular basis?
Yeah, so I think I always have some sort of a PvP game that I'm like is always my backup. Shouldn't even say that.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's the primary, but Rainbow Six Siege. I did spend a little bit of time with 9 to 5 this week. It's
Hmm.
good, right? It's
Yeah.
it's
Good.
it's
Not
and
everyone has that opinion, but I like. It's nice to hear that.
Yeah, I mean it's early
It's not for
access, right?
everyone.
So I don't think we can expect it's not going to be this fine polished game. I
Hmm.
think for free to play early access, it's myself. I like it. It's really great.
Hmm.
I've got a whole rotation. It's almost like people who watch different TV shows with different, with you got the stuff you watch with the kids, and then you got stuff that's after everyone's in
Right.
bed, and then you got stuff you maybe watch with your partner, and so
Hmm.
we've got a whole bunch of those. So I've got games that are sort of I play solo, like I'm going through Red Dead Redemption, I'm just
Hmm.
soaking it up, and then I've got the multiplayer when some of the friends are on, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
it's just people who say there's no games on Stadia, they're crazy. There's so many.
I
Okay,
know.
my backlog's so big. I've got so many I want to get through.
A little bit of chicken police with the family too, right? Oh my gosh, watch it like playing that game, and you were in the chat there just laughing as probably as hard as I was at some of the things that they were saying. Like the animals, they look so odd and weird, but like strangely addicting. Like hearing a chicken swear or innuendo or things like that has just had me like shaking my head so many times and laughing, and it's great, and appreciate your support. Like you've been into so many different people's streams and very active amongst the community as well, so that's great and fantastic to hear. Like really do appreciate all of your support and everything that you do.
that's the that's the difference, I think, right? Like if you're kind of able to catch a little bit of streams like this, and you look at
Hmm.
other content creators, it's very tight, and for good reason, right? Because you can have people on your friends list, and you can play a bunch of different games together. It's just I see a whole bunch of people that I have played with, and part of our communities, and there's
Hmm.
it's small, like it's you don't have millions and billions of people,
Right, yeah.
but it's not tiny, and it's just awesome when you can find everybody seems to be really excited about getting together with other people. It makes it less toxic, right? Because you're going to run into someone in another part of the Stadia community, and people are
Hmm.
generally pretty good. I find it's awesome.
You're right.
Yeah.
Like I don't take too much time to play with other people because I don't have a lot of time in general. But I've played like one time I've played with it was with Ray and
Hmm.
William SPG, and I think like Dismal Gaming or someone like that. And it was just amazing to me like how patient they were. Like I died, and I was playing at breakpoint actually, and I died, and they took the time to come and rescue me. They were very far. They're like, oh, I'm coming for you, man. And it's so different because I'm so used to playing on PlayStation, and people are just like, yeah, well, just die and you'll revive, whatever. But they really make the experience even more enjoyable just because they're so uh welcoming to at doing it. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and we've already seen like these different community events, summer community championships. Now we're
Mhm.
having, the Stadia Community 2021 Awards, winter community championships, Caring from the Clouds, so all these different events that we've come up as a community, in addition to, the events that we've had this year with Grace and things like that, the Rainbow Six Siege, and we had also on the Stadiaversary, she was streaming for several hours and got to be able to play and interact with her and the community well. And it was so awesome to see that everybody come together and just, get along. Like you said, for the most part, there are some disagreements here or there, but tomato, tomato, there always is. Nobody can always get along 100%. But for the most part, everybody, really does get along. So it's good, really good to hear. Let's see, what do we have here? Paul in the chat. I love you all. Seriously, you've all been so fantastic. I enjoy doing streams or going into streams to catch up on with y'all. And I hear that, or very similar to that from so many different people in the community. And what I love too, it's around the world too. So like that was something that with the Stadiaversary, when we made that video and had the card that we sent over to Google, is just to show, that it's not just English speaking countries. There's, France, Italy, Germany. Where's Mail Sir from? Is he from Netherlands?
Netherlands, yeah.
Yeah, Netherlands. Like it's all over. It's worldwide, and like just the outreach and support is top notch. It's fantastic.
And that's why we're so excited to hear if there's going to be an expansion or not, right? Because we want to see, like, there's even people like during Grace's stream from Brazil, they were like, "Oh man,
Yes.
I can't wait for it to come to Brazil and stuff." So it's crazy how people are waiting for it and how it's going to grow even more.
Yeah. So let's see here. Exception. I don't know. Do you have a little bit more time to stick around, or do you have to go? Or I know like you have a family and commitments.
Yeah, actually, it's my wife's birthday today, so I was
probably yeah. You better
head out
go.
soon enough. But
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. We don't want to get you in trouble. We know. We all know that. So, not trying to kick you off here, but we know that you've got to go here. Appreciate you sticking around with us here and help talk with Ethan and letting us get to know you a little bit. And again, appreciate all your support, everything that you do. Really a fantastic guy overall. I really do appreciate that.
Very cool. Yeah, thanks, and good work to you guys too. This content is top notch, right? And even all the stuff you're just doing for the community, the charity work that you put together, that to me was just fantastic. I watched every weekend all the different streamers. And thought it was fantastic. So good for you guys for keep this kind of stuff up. I think it's cool.
Yeah, that was awesome. And I remember, I think it was one of your kids' birthdays. Was it on one of the streams? And I gave a shout out to I forget who it was. You came into one of the streams, and I don't know if it's maybe one of your kids anyways, and give a shout out on their birthday. I think I was playing Addams Family Values, I think, or no, the Addams Family, the new game, Addams Family. Yeah, that's what it was. I remember you came in there and was, so it's nice. It's nice to see, be able to connect on that point too, and just making someone's birthday at least that much brighter.
Maybe we should say happy birthday to his wife now, right? Like, if he's requesting, maybe we should sing it.
Well, you could sing it in French for. Let's see, right?
No, that's good.
I was gonna start, but yeah, we'll never won't. All right, so thank you so much again, Exception. I really appreciate it, and hope you have a great Friday night. Hope your wife has a great birthday, and we'll talk with you again real soon.
Awesome. Thanks again,
Thank
guys.
you.
Awesome.
All right.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. Wow.
What a day. What a day. Yeah, I know. It's so exciting. Crazy, man.
Dre's asking us here, John and Ninja, you should sing.
Yeah, maybe we will eventually.
No, yeah, one time, or Maurice, and I'll have to come up with an alter ego as well, right?
Yeah. So the plan for the rest of the stream, guys, is unless John, do you still have time, right?
Yeah. We can go through.
So we have community news, that we're going to go through, and then we just want to quickly breeze through this week's on Stadia today, and then we have other official news, but we're just going to breeze through them like really quick, just to let you know,
Yeah.
guys, what's happening. But
Yep.
yeah, it was a very exciting day for sure.
Okay, so let's see here. I'm going to make this full screen.
Perfect.
There we go. So we've got some stuff here, and let me move over to that tab. So the first thing that we are going to talk about here, and I saw this mentioned over on Reddit, and I thought it was so awesome. My dog and I visited the Google store in Manhattan, and they have a whole room that's dedicated to Stadia. We took the seat and played Control. It was wonderful. And I loved that there. You got your dog that's sitting here in the Stadia room at the Google store and just having a blast. So adorable, so cute. And we can see here, look, Stadia. Hi, little doggy. What's your name? Bond, James Bond. So we got some pretty cool reactions here, and I thought that was interesting. You do see some shots there from the Google store in New York, but never a dog, and that's always cute. So
Maybe
fun to
one
see.
day you'll be able to bring Yoshi in
Oh
one of these
yeah,
stores,
yeah.
right?
You never know. You never know. We know Shaka loves dogs as well. So I'm sure Shaka saw this and just fell in love with the dog here. So, all right. So we're going to move on here. Oh, so this is now, we're going on just not yesterday was the Game Awards. So let's see, the day before that, Wednesday, we got to talk with Herbert here about Death Carnival, another fantastic developer, and interview, and he gave us some insights on Death Carnival, it coming to Stadia early access. They're going to be opening that up in 2022. And we had lots of questions. Herbert wasn't shy, just like Ethan there. He just took all the questions and answered them. Fantastic person. I love talking with Herbert, and looking forward to see more of Death Carnival in 2022.
Yeah, if you have any slight interest in Death Carnival, I really encourage you to watch this interview. Like, he was
Yeah.
really open. He revealed some stuff, even some stuff that I think maybe he didn't want to reveal that day. Like, it was amazing.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just great. It's about I think an hour and a half, 2 hour watch, but you can kind of skim through it here and there, and there's a lot of great information that Herbert talks about, and he really enjoyed it. Like after we got off the interview, I talked to him for a few minutes over the phone, and he was just like, "This is so awesome." He was so hyped, and great to hear all the enthusiasm from the community about the game. So fantastic. All right, moving along here. Cloudy Games, they we talked about it last week. Their Cloud Gaming Awards, they had voting and it's now closed. So they're going to have their show with the results tomorrow, Saturday, December the 11th on YouTube. So if you head on over to cloudy.games, you'll be able to see, and then there's a link to their YouTube. I'm not sure exactly what time on Saturday, December 11th they're having it, but I guess we'll find out. There'll be definitely announcements on Twitter as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so we know that this week, Stadia account tweeted out, which was pretty awesome. This a great new way to really interact with the people and basically let fans choose what game goes on sale. It was between Far Cry 5 and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And they put up a poll and they said, whatever game wins, we'll put it on sale for $14.99. So sure enough, Assassin's Creed Valhalla won, I think by a lot, and it came out today, and $14.99 US. So us here in Canada, we thought, oh wow, it's going to probably at least be like $20, maybe even $25 on sale. But no, sure enough, it wasn't. It was in NinjaGuy. I think you tweeted out there. It's actually $14.93 Canadian. So we actually got it cheaper than the US. You could buy it from the Canadian store because $15 US is about $20 in Canadian. So us being able to buy it for $15, we actually got it cheaper. So that was pretty awesome to see. and you maybe hinted at, well, maybe we got that discount because of the Premier editions being sold out. That might be the case. I don't
Yeah,
know, but
just speculations, right? It could be just an error or just a kind gesture. We really don't know.
yeah, yep,
Yeah.
exactly. And
I
there was
like
another.
I like Rebellica's comment. She's just like, "Whoops." Maybe that's what they did. It just did one mistake.
Yeah, here we go. We got inverse exchange rate credit saying. Yeah,
Nice.
there's Rebellica there. Oops. Yep. Yeah.
Nice.
Sometimes the chat moves so fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul saying in the chat he highly recommends Valhalla.
Nice.
At that price, at like $15, you can't, like, that's an impulse buy, even if you're a little bit interested in it. And guess what? You still have that 2 hour window, right? So
Mhm.
$15, you get 2 hours, and there you go. Jack here. Finally a good deal for Canadians.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
So there's one other little piece of news here. We'll go over. So our good friend, Original Penguin, Adam, tweeted out here just the other day. Hey, oh, and I'm bad to pronounce this here. Honoria Crimes. Are you still coming to Stadia? And we asked some people like, well, I didn't even know it was coming out. Well, Adam references here back on Reddit that the game Honorea, maybe? How about O Crimes? We'll call it O Crimes just
Yeah.
because, right?
Yeah.
And there's a Reddit post that posted back saying that it was supposed to come out in 2021. And we got a response from the official Twitter account there. It says, hi, we will give some news about the future of the game later this month. A Stadia port is still in the willing, but not yet confirmed. So it still
Mhm.
looks like this game could be coming to Stadia here, but nothing's confirmed. And I took a look at it here. If we go over, there's a Steam page, and we take a peek, and it says it's a dreamlike future. Detective Santos and Torres will have to solve a series of mysterious murders, investigate and interrogate objects with their voice and personality in a point-and-click noir graphic adventure. Can you
Oh my
find the
gosh.
culprit? So this is like another point-and-click game, right? Like detective, Chicken Police, Dark Side Detective.
Murder
So
mysteries.
yeah, murder mystery. So you can see that very unique graphic style as well. Voxel, I think that's what it's referred to as. So it
Hmm.
looks pretty awesome. So they said later this month, maybe early January, we'll find out something about it. So hopefully that's good news incoming. And then again, what we started the show off with here, the news about the Stadia Community Game Awards. That's happening. It's going to be broadcast from Clive's YouTube channel, New Year's Eve, and the voting for this ends 2 weeks from today on Christmas Eve. So get your votes in there. And I think, do I have? Oh, let me get the link here again so that we can have this up here. Let me do it in a spot where I'm not doing it on the screen here. And let's take a peek. Let me get that really quick. Bitly. Move it on over. And let's post in the chat. So there's a link to the form. That will get you to this here, the Stadia Community Game Awards 2021, and get your vote in there. And interesting to see how the community votes for, and to see what the different types of winners and games. I'll be voting after the show here for sure.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and bloop, move me back here, and let's bring you front and center.
Okay.
There
So,
we go. Yep.
so now we're at official news, and I just made just a quick decision that I think I'm gonna go with all the news first, and then just go with Stadia.
Okay,
Decision on
sure.
Stadia for
Yeah.
the last one.
Mm-hmm.
So guys, just to let you know, there's currently a promotion with Lenovo. So all you have to do is sign up with Lenovo. All the instructions are here, and the only catch though is that you if you already did the 3 months promo, this is not going to work. But if you did a 1 month promo or a 6 month promo, this is still gonna work. So if you want to have a look, I'm just gonna paste the link here in the chat if you're interested. There you go.
Yeah, yeah, like you were mentioning there, if you've done a 1 or a 6 month, then you can use the 3, and some people were even saying that you can stack them as well. So
Oh wow, that's awesome.
yeah, yeah, so very good if you haven't redeemed promotion like this for that particular month. Great way to get Stadia Pro for free.
Cool. And as usual, Sky Climbers is very very active on their Twitter and stuff, and we've just got a new preview video, Air Biome or Biome preview.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not good. I massacre words also, John. So
Yeah.
don't feel too bad.
No, yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, this looks pretty good. It's a pre-alpha. We know that they're going to be doing some early alpha next year, March on PC, and then Stadia not too far behind. So this was a game that the Stadia community got behind and got it funded. So
exactly,
very excited to see the progress and be able to get our hands on it here.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like it's 4K. The animation is super smooth here. It's 60 frames per second. Like on my end, I'm seeing it very smoothly, and it's very something to look forward to.
Yeah.
So next up, we got some speculation. Okay, I was like, I don't know why we put this in the community, but that's right. We got we're at the official news now. Okay, so we got a USK. Geez, I'm having a blank there. A rating.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
For MotoGP 21. So a lot of people in the community was disappointed that we didn't get the sequel for MotoGP because we got the 20. MotoGP 20, but we haven't heard of 21. So this is promising. It doesn't mean anything. We might get it or not, but this is like the first step to get a game on Stadia. So now there's a chance that we get it. So it's cool. Yeah.
Yep, that's great to see.
Yeah, Fletcher's saying if MotoGP 21 comes to Stadia, it's an instant buy to me. So that's interesting too.
Yeah, and that was one of the MotoGP 20 was one of the Summer Community Championship final games, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was my nightmare game. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, like I practiced so much for this game, John, you don't know.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare. Such a hard game, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we got an interesting one here, and I think it's in relation almost to Ethan that we got here on the show. So I think we talked about it, but handy game here, which released. Can you refresh my mind here, John?
Yeah, Chicken Police. They just recently released Chicken Police.
Okay, so Chicken Police, and what they did here, they're saying that the port is more or less difficult to be on Stadia than other platforms. So if you read on further, it's just saying that it's pretty much the same. So there's no bigger challenges or not. So it says the biggest challenge that is exclusive to Stadia is that we need to support all sorts of display formats and make everything legible and look good on small and big screen. Which I find he should have underlined this also because it's another interesting thing from them.
And I think that's what Ethan was referencing too. Remember how he talked about, he said input there, but obviously, phone would be a consideration as well on those games that for whatever reason at the time they ported over, but didn't go with because of inputs. Maybe they couldn't get it working correctly or didn't want to put the extra time into it. So this is good to see. Handy Games mentioned that, that to bring games to Stadia, it's no harder than any other platform, really. The only thing is you got to look. Yeah.
Yeah. We got this here saying that it's not less difficult.
Less difficult.
It's a good
way
to say that.
Yeah. So they're not saying that it's easier. It's about the same. Yeah. And often you'll see like a lot of people say, oh, well, maybe because of Linux, this and that. And it's like, no, because we talked with Ethan there's the tools and things like that there. So
exactly.
So
and
the games will come.
It's good. Yeah. And so it's good for developers to consider the text size, just in case someone is playing on the phone, because there has been a few games with complaints. I think Humankind was one of them, and
Right.
Humankind is one of the perfect example because they did custom inputs for the mobile touchscreen too. So
Yeah, touch.
I,
Yeah.
I think that Humankind is a perfect example for porting difficulties.
Hmm.
Next up, we got some more speculations. So we've got more ratings. We got a rating for Far Cry Primal and Far Cry 4. So we are aware that these games will come to Stadia sooner or later because there was a blog a few months ago, and Ubisoft was announcing a lot of older games that were getting ported to Stadia, and we did get a few. We got Assassin's Creed Liberation. Did we get Liberation? But we got Assassin's Creed Rogue. We got Rayman
Right.
Legends.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're getting the next one we're getting is Assassin's Creed 3. So by looking at these ratings, it looks promising, and we might be getting those two pretty soon. Maybe we'll get those two before Far Cry 3, because I know that Far Cry 3 is another one that we're going to get pretty soon.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Next up, we got the Hitman Winter Roadmap. So, I got some sound here on my end. So here is just a roadmap on what's happening in winter for Hitman 3. So as we mentioned last week, there's just been a lot of good reception on Hitman. So they're doing just this guy here. They're just doing a lot more to Hitman 3 just to expand and make all the community more happy with more content. And then we got Akupara Games finally showing the trailer of a new. I got some sound here on my end again. The trailer of a new DLC coming. So we were expecting this again a few more DLCs for the Darkside Detective, Fumble in the Dark. So we're getting a DLC soon on December 24th, and it's a winter Christmas theme case, and it's going to be great because the Christmas theme from the first game, the Christmas theme case was so good. So I'm looking forward to for that. Yeah, and I know that a lot of people in the chat here is pretty excited for this one too. So
yep.
All right, so let's jump into the meat, John. Spend a little bit more time here.
Yeah.
And gonna ask for your opinion on stuff and that. So
Sure.
So we got this week on Stadia here, and to me, I don't know about you, John, but this was a very solid this week on Stadia.
For sure.
Because usually the this week on Stadia, the first one after the beginning of the month, it's just it's not too good because they released the free games, and they don't have much to talk about, but man, they did an excellent one here.
Yeah, for sure. I think the big part here, I'll go ahead. I'll give you a little break here. I'll talk about the first thing, the Stadia on LG TV. So we know earlier this year, it was announced that they were going to have a native app for the web OS on LG TVs due by the end of the year. And we saw a couple of weeks ago, GeForce Now released their app for it. And sure enough, earlier this week, we got the Stadia app. So you have to have WebOS 5 and above. I think it's up to 6 now. So basically, any of the LG TVs from 2020 and above, you'll have a native Stadia app where you don't need the Chromecast Ultra or the Google TV with Chromecast. You can just install the app on your TV, use a Stadia controller or Bluetooth Xbox, PlayStation, Switch controller, and play your games. So I have the LG C9, which is just shy of being able to do this. I'm at like WebOS 4.9.3 or whatever, and my TV was manufactured like August of 2019.
So
I got
close.
I got it Christmas of 2019, but I mean, it would have been nice to have it built into the television, but I still have the Google TV with Chromecast, so but the big thing is here on this, hearing from people talk about it, is that the UI is rendered in a higher resolution. It's a little more crisper. As you can see, it's got support for the 4K HDR up to 60 frames a second, 5.1 sound, all that good stuff. So this just opens up Stadia to even more people now, right? You know, all these people with LG TVs, millions of more people. And even if you get a fraction of those people to sign to create a Google account, they don't have to subscribe to Stadia Pro. Just create their Stadia account, and they can even be playing some of the free to play games, buy some games here or there. It's great overall. So this is no announcement of expansion into other countries yet, but now we've got expansion on other devices.
Yeah, which is good. And I was going to mention the resolution on this app, but you went ahead and said that, so it's great.
Mhm.
I really
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So next up, we got some Bungie. So Bungie is celebrating their 30th anniversary. So they got some cool events going on in Destiny. Destiny is very big for Stadia,
Mhm.
and I've got a
Mhm.
few friends who's very excited for this. They're, they've been talking about it, and so yeah, Bungie is doing great. Still, they're going strong. So it's cool to see them doing some more support to the game.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. When I first saw that Bungie's 30th anniversary, I was like, no way, Bungie's not 30 years old. But then I go back and start to think, I'm like, it's 2021 coming into 2022.
Yeah.
2000 was 22 years ago now, right? So me thinking, oh no, Bungie's just in 90s there. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Well, that's, that is 30 years ago now. Like, oh my gosh, where's the time gone?
Yeah, we keep getting older, right? And these
I
games
know,
keep
I
coming.
know. Yeah.
Next up, we got a new game. Wink, wink. If you guys missed that, we made an interview with the person who ported this,
Mhm.
Ethan Lee.
Lee,
So
yep.
go ahead and have a look at this game. So it's
Mhm.
pretty cool. I haven't had a chance to play it or see any of the games on it. John, did you
Yeah.
have this
I,
bit?
I haven't, no, not yet. It's on
Okay.
my list of games to buy and stream on Stadia. But yeah, it was really funny or interesting, not funny, interesting to learn from Ethan that, 7 was done first, but
Before.
8 released. Yeah, yeah. So it really makes sense there. These whimsical games and great party games. And again, what I love about the Jackbox games are that anybody playing, they don't have to own it. Just have a device, head over to jackbox.tv, put the code in, and yeah, just have
It's
fun. And you can have
easy.
so many different people playing and going on and being part of the audience as well. And there's Serena here saying we should have a Jackbox Party Pack 7 gaming Scarmy stream. So
Oh
at
yeah.
one point we will. Maybe we'll have it a special Stadium Connect North branded stream. Who
Mhm.
knows, where we can play along, because that would be a fun game to play with everybody. So definitely in the works. I don't know if it'll happen before the end of the year, but it'll happen. It'll happen at
Yep.
some point.
Exactly. It's funny because Jackbox is like the best game to be accessible with the
Yeah.
Stadia platform, because you can just go
Hmm.
everywhere and play it. So it's very
Hmm.
convenient, and they made a
Yep.
good decision to do that. So I'm gonna let you talk about this next
Uh,
news, John.
yeah. All right. Well, this next is a clucking good game. I played it. Chicken Police. And yeah, I said clucking, so
Yeah.
no censor needed. It's a point and click game like Dark Side Detective. It's totally funny. The characters are animals in it, but it's done in like a 40s noir style atmosphere, fully voiced, amazing. It is so funny. There is some language in it as well, so maybe not for the little ears. To if you have any little ears around, they do. There's a couple swear words and some like innuendos and things like that, and it's great. Like it's the price point. It's 25 Canadian. Can't beat that. 20 US. And yeah, it's so awesome. Handy Games brought it over there. Yeah. Chicken Police. There's two. You play as one of the chickens there that is getting ready to retire. There you go, buddy cop noir adventure, and you're getting ready to. You're not even on the police force now. You're like this faux detective with a fake badge, and yeah, it's so it's funny. Like, I mean, I
Wow.
can't say enough about it. I streamed it. I originally was going to stream for an hour, and I had to stop myself at 2.5, 3 hours
Oh my
because
gosh! Wow.
it's just yeah, it's so fun. shout out, Rusty. Thank you for subscribing. I see that in the chat. Appreciate that. But yeah, definitely check out Chicken Police if you're out for some nice humor, laid back, easy to play, point and click, and it's fun.
It's a game that I did not watch your stream or any of your shorts just because I want to experience it myself, and I didn't
Yeah.
I want to avoid spoilers because it seemed very wacky, and
Yeah,
I want to try
for
it.
sure.
So next up we got Super Animal Royale. Finally, we're getting some good news
Yes.
here. So on December 14th, we're getting the game alongside season 2. I think there was some news, right, that something was happening on December 14th at the same time.
Yeah, that season 2 was coming out, and that then a lot of people were speculating because Super Animal Royale, free to play. So there's another free to play game. Doesn't cost you anything. It was rated for Stadia back in August, the end of August.
Yeah.
So these last couple of months, we are all thinking, okay, September, no. October, no. November, no. December, no. We're like, oh, it's almost the end of the year. When is it coming? And sure enough, they tweeted out, I think a couple days before this announcement, the developers tweeted out that the season 2 is coming, and it's got full cross-platform party support. So sure enough, here it is. We're going to get it on Stadia, right? So we'll be able to play with people on PlayStation, Xbox, PC. I think it's on Switch too as well. I'm not 100% sure. So that'll be fun. That's just like a bigger player base, right? So I'm ready to dive into that. Another great, it's going to be a party game. I think it's 64 players.
You're correct right here. 64.
There you go. Yeah. So I'm going to play probably as I'll pick out I'm here in Toronto. I'll probably pick out the Blue Jay to play as at first. Toronto Blue Jays, right?
Nice. I like cats.
We'll see how it goes.
Take a cat.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
Nice. Yeah. So they've been pretty vocal about it. Like we knew it was gonna come out eventually, but now we finally got a date, so we're pretty chill about it. So now we got a Ark Survival Winter Wonderland event. So Ark Survival, along with like Crata and Destiny, like I didn't know about it. They have events, which is kind of cool. So right now they have this event here. The community created Lost Island map will become an official Ark map on December 14th. So I guess it's a map that was created by the community.
Nice.
So it's very nice to see some updates still happening on the game. It's the game is getting a few years old now, but we're still seeing a lot of support.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And then we got some juicy news, as John would say. Yeah. So we're getting Assassin's Creed Remastered again on December 14th. Please, guys, keep December 14th in mind. We're getting a lot of stuff. So if we base ourselves on Black Flag Sport, this will probably look gorgeous. If we let's hope for like a 4K 60 FPS game, like I feel like this is what it's going to be. We're getting all of the DLC solo content and Assassin's Creed Liberation. Funnily enough, I like Assassin's Creed Liberation more than 3. Liberation was the PlayStation Vita game at the time that released simultaneously. And so really looking forward for that one for sure.
That's awesome. There's Jack Juicy.
Nice. So then we also yesterday we got Monopoly Madness. So I've been looking around online, and for some reason people still don't know what it is. Like people play it and they can't describe what the game is, and I'm really confused. I really hope that John does a stream eventually, because I'm just really not sure what it is. But it came out. Yeah. It looks very wacky, very not mayhem, but like just
it's different. It's different than like normal Monopoly. Yeah, for sure. Definitely want to try it out here. I think it has 6-player local or 6-player online. So maybe if I get it, we can kind of do a Stadia couch stream here, and we can play along. You and some other people as well. Yeah, they have a bundle so where you can get Monopoly and Monopoly Madness for I think it's like $20 more, because I think Monopoly Madness is $39.99 here. Yeah. So I don't know. Like I have Monopoly. I haven't played it that much. It's just
Yeah.
regular old Monopoly. Paul asking here in the chat. I don't think it has crossplay, Paul. I don't think so. Not sure
Mm.
that it's even mentioned in there that it does.
Yeah, it doesn't mention
Uh
anything about that. But
yeah.
there's some cool features. Oh, I just click on tournament service. Oh, it didn't go. And you can get the game for Ubisoft Plus if you're subscribed. Then you get the game in your library,
Mhm.
which is very
Yep.
nice.
Mhm.
Next up, so we got 9 to 5 that just came out. You guys know that I play that a lot. This is basically
Mhm.
my main game. Not sure if I'll switch to Super Animal Royale when it comes out, but yeah, for now I've been playing that. So guys, if you like to see some stream, this is what I stream in the morning from Monday to Friday. So feel free to come in on my stream. Subscribe at NinjaGuy X. So yeah, feel free to come. It's a free to play game. It's borrowing some of the Rainbow Six Siege mechanics, but it has it's a unique game. Like it has its own gameplay. So
Mhm.
it takes a lot longer to kill people. So I do manage to get some kills compared to Siege, because Siege is very hard in my opinion. Uh, if you guys are interested, you can join the 9 to 5 Discord. The community over there is very nice. So you get to play with a lot of pro players, unfortunately, right? So you die a lot, but if they know that you're on the Discord, they're gonna tag you and they're gonna be like, "Oh, well played. You did this was good. This was bad." They're a really nice community, kind of like Stadia. Like um, they try to help you out, and if you have any questions, I think they're really welcoming, just because we gave a boost, right, to the amount of players on the
Mhm.
game,
Mhm.
and they're really happy about that. So
Yeah, I did a stream of that on, was that yesterday, Thursdays? No, I don't know. Anyways, in the last couple of
yeah.
days, did a stream. You came on, and a couple of other people from the Discord were on there as well. From the 9 to 5 Discord, they were very
Yeah.
helpful. Like that was awesome. Like they were giving me pointers here. I was getting ready to buy some weapons. They're like, no, wait till you get to level 10 to buy a weapon. There was
Right.
right, some controller adjustments. Like everybody was so helpful. They never had like like a smug or
Mhm.
better than that. Like they were helpful. They're like awesome
Yeah.
Stadia players. Like yeah, we'll play you. We'll whoop your butt. But they said it, in
Exactly.
a fun manner, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was awesome.
Yeah.
And we got to play. Was me, Fletch, and Daniel. I think yeah, Daniel as well. We
Yeah.
played, and you were in the chat there too. And it's
Yeah.
awesome.
So Gnome and Koza was in the chat, if I
Yes,
remember correctly.
yeah,
And
yep.
Gnome is like that. He's gonna like tease us. Like he's gonna be
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
yeah, you got nothing against me, and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
after the game, he's always like telling us, well played, and he's a very nice guy.
Yep.
All right, so next up we got a Spirit Fair update. I don't know if this was expected, but it's a nice little addition. So, if I'm not mistaken, do you know if it's a free update, John, or not?
Yeah, I believe it is. It's a free update that's coming out. Is it on the 14th? I think it is.
Okay,
Is that what it says there? Yeah, yeah. I'm
13.
pretty sure. Oh, okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm pretty sure it's a free update.
cool.
Yeah.
And it's a game where you have to guide spirits to the other world, I think. And so
Yep.
in this update, they're bringing two characters, right? Jackie and Daria.
Hmm.
So yeah, guys, look forward for that if you have the game. If you don't have the game, maybe it's time to just give it a small buy and have a look, because it's a very heartwarming game. It's a very
Oh
it's
yeah, the
I think it's
story.
a
Yeah,
yeah.
great story in it. Like you said, very heartwarming, touching.
Mhm.
Fantastic game.
I feel like it's a great game to play on a snowy day.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's perfect.
Yeah. Then we got Creta. So like Arc, it gets a few support, a few new items, new stuff, new
Hmm.
season pass. So right now we
Yep.
have a new strength and sorcery season. So look forward to that. Next up, we got a new game, Blaze and the Monster Machines, Axel City Racers. So this is a game aimed for kids.
Yep.
It's a racing game, but just so you guys are aware, this is not like a Mario Kart type of game where you got like abilities and stuff. This is simply just a casual racing game
Yep.
to play
For
with
younger
your
kids there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you can have four player local like split screen. So it's aged for like the 3 to 7 year olds, maybe 8. I don't know. That might be a little high, but like, for the young kids, simple, easy to do. And then developers worked with, cause it's a cartoon and animated series as well. So they worked with the people there to make it as authentic as they can, so that, like when you have the little ones playing, or me, who I'm going to be streaming it next week, is you'll recognize them from the cartoon. So, like you said, it's for the younger audience. Another great family game from Outright Games, and nice, simple, easy that the little ones can sit down and play.
Exactly. So Lord Vivek is saying that he played Spiritfarer
Mhm.
on the Game Pass, and it is very
Yep.
really touching. So
Yeah.
it's cool that
Oh,
it's the kind of game I'd be interested in.
yeah. Oh, so here's Jack there. He said, actually, it does have some abilities like Mario Kart, which is
Oh,
awesome. Yeah, and
okay.
I guess Jack played it with his kid, and they had fun. So that's
Oh,
great to hear.
yeah. No, thanks for correcting me. I actually I was not giving the right information then. So thank you for correcting me on that.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, next up we got Chorus that just came out. It came out on the 8th, I think. I mean, it feels like it came a long time ago because there's so many
Yeah.
news happening, right? So
Yeah.
John has played that on his channel. He
Hmm.
did a 1 hour impression or even more. Lately, he's been doing a longer plays.
I know, right?
So it is a AA game. The price is excellent. I think it's like
Hmm.
52.99 Canadian,
Yeah.
and I think it's worth your money. It's a open world spaceship shooting
Hmm.
game with the control is kind of like you're uh, can you refresh my memory, what kind of control does it remind you of, John?
So it reminded me of course, this is showing my age here. Back in the '90s, a 3D space shooting game called Descent on the computer. Just because you can move around in the environment, fully 3D, around objects, go behind corners, and there's lots of the story is great in it. Lots of things to search for and hunt, and great gameplay. And again, like another. Great price game. Like you said, 53
Mm.
Canadian. It's 39.99 US. So yeah, if you like those space shooters, fully 3D space shooters, and with a great story, then Chorus. There's plenty of streams to check out on YouTube alone from mine that you can just search and find. I know Mark Woodhall has done like several different streams, so you can get a good idea from it just from doing some searches if you're unsure about it on YouTube.
Yeah, very nice.
Hmm.
um then we got so I they said something back in October and they delivered.
Hmm.
So Unto the
Yep.
End came out today. And
Yep.
did you stream that today, John? I think you had like a stream
No.
planned. Oh, you didn't
No.
stream it
Well,
after
I
all.
did. Yeah, I've had to push back some streams here and there. Things have come up.
Okay.
So yeah. So it's scheduled. It's in the pipeline. I'll have to look what my schedule is like for next
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
I'm getting
Busy
behind
day.
on the games. I always like to do the
Mhm.
first looks within the first couple of days when the game comes out, but
Yeah.
I'm behind. Like it's just because it's that time of year. So.
Yeah, I get it. And yeah, just let you know, guys, I've been super busy too with work and stuff. And
Mhm.
my present hasn't been as much as before, but after like around February, I'll probably be back into it. It's just, yeah, right now, the job is keeping me pretty busy.
Yeah.
And last but not least, we've got another event. It's the Dead by Daylight Bone Chill Winter Event. So I'm really advertising this, right? So
Yeah.
it's great. They every time they have a new event, they have new missions, new quests, new characters. So
Mhm.
you guys can look forward to that.
Yeah.
And that's
So
all I have
yeah,
here.
I think so. I would like to. I want to just reveal we have a special guest coming on next
Hey,
week.
all right.
And we just got it confirmed. It's been a couple of weeks in the planning here, and this person just got the okay. So next Friday, we're going to have on the show here none other than Gracie. She's been in the chat a couple of times here. She just had her 1 year Google versary. She's a developer support lead over for the let me see if I can get this right, EMEA. So she's located in Germany, and she's agreed, got the okay and the clearance. She'll be on the show next week to talk. And maybe she can show us Stady as well. I know she's tweeted out Stady, and people had an awesome, a great reaction to that. So we're going to talk with Grace here a little bit about Google, the developer support, and we know that. Herbert mentioned, that Google provides such amazing developer support. Well, he doesn't interact here with Gracie because she's over in Germany, but she would be like, she's the lead for the team that Herbert would contact if he's got problems or things like that. So yeah, so Gracie will be on here a week from today. And like I said, it's been a couple of weeks in the planning here, probably a good 3 weeks, almost four. Had to get clearance from several different people, but yeah,
Yeah,
she'll be on the show.
yeah, we like thought of maybe getting her this week, but we had so many interviews,
Yeah,
so many shows,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. There's so
So
much going on, and just trying to cram things in
yeah,
here. We even have Two Bag. I've interviewed Two Bag, a pre-recorded interview that we
yeah,
need to get on at
yeah,
some point in time. Hopefully he's listening. We didn't forget
yeah.
about you
No,
here.
no.
We'll get
We've
we'll
got
get Two Bag on for
then we
sure.
got like at least two more developers that we can interview for sure that we need to
Hmm.
ask. But
Hmm.
yeah, Jack is saying that is awesome. You got an actual Googler on this show, and I think we're gonna be the first show who actually get to have a Google employee on.
Yep.
So it's good. It's good that Google let us do that, and we
Hmm.
really appreciate it. And he's asking who is Stady. Stady
Who
is
is Stady?
yeah. Come on, Jack.
Jack, come on now. Let me see. Hold on. Let me see if I can get that screen. I think I've got to share it again here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Stady. Share
Oh, who
screen
doesn't love
window.
Stady? He says.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Stady
There we
is
go.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Who doesn't love Stady?
Yeah.
It's awesome. We're hoping maybe t-shirts, plushies, all that good stuff.
Mhm.
And it's just a dream, but
Yeah,
yeah, so we'll have Gracie on here to talk about things. And before we go here, I think this is our longest episode yet.
it is.
Yeah, well, just one more time here, we're gonna run the trailer.
Stadia Community Game Awards 2021.
There we go. Yeah, so that's coming. The voting is open now. Posted the link a couple of times in the chat. I'll get it, add it to the description. It's going to close. The voting is going to close Christmas Eve, 2 weeks from today, and then Clive will be streaming the awards on his channel New Year's Eve, and it'd be interesting to see how the community events or how the community votes and some of the favorite games. So I know I'm going to, after the show here, get on there and get my votes in and make sure they count. We'll see how it goes.
Hell yeah.
Granted, it's like,
Yeah, I
who
know.
narrated that? I think that was Maurice. Maurice came in for a second and ran in there, and yeah, so that
Yeah.
was awesome. Alrighty, well, everybody, thank you so much. A big shout out to everybody in the chat here. I know we didn't get to acknowledge everybody here, but it's been such a busy day. Thank you for the super chats as well, the follows, all the comments and love. We really do appreciate that, and hope everybody has a great rest of the Friday. I know Ninja Guy, it's after 8 o'clock for you there.
After hours, so we can swear,
Yeah.
right? No.
Tabernacle.
Yeah. No, what a success. He did swear. Oh my god. So what a successful show, man. Great show. So happy. Yeah, I love it. We got two interviews today.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward for the other stream. It's always so much fun. Can't wait to do more here.
Yep, yeah, and definitely check out NinjaGuy X. He does pretty much every morning with your early morning streams, right?
Yes.
Yeah, early morning streams. We've got the details, the bot's been advertising. Also, check out in the description. There'll be links to both of our socials here. Check us out. And again, thank you so much, everybody, for all the love.
All right.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.